Picture this. A woman stands in the shadows of a grand hall, invisible among hundreds celebrating a victory she helped win. Below, her mate, the alpha she's bound to by fate itself, laughs with another woman, his arm draped casually where hers should be. Then three words slice through the noise, just strategic convenience. That's what he calls their bond, their destined bond. And no one in that room knows the secret growing beneath her heart. His heir, already formed, already fighting to live. What would you do? Run? Scream? Break? She does none of those. Instead, Luna Ilara Vance makes a decision so cold, so final, it will shatter an entire pack before sunrise. Stay with me until the end. This is the story of a woman who walked into the wilderness pregnant and powerless, and returned a queen. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from, and hit that like button if you believe some bonds are meant to be broken before they can be remade. The great hall of Iron Pine Ridge burned with firelight and laughter. Ilara stood at the top of the stone staircase, half hidden behind a marble column, watching the celebration unfold below. 200 wolves filled the space, warriors still blood-spattered from the border skirmish, elders draped in ceremonial furs, young pack members passing flagons of spiced wine. Victory hung in the air like smoke. They had crushed the encroaching Shadowfang pack, driven them back across the northern ridgeline. Iron Pine's borders were secure for another season. She had been part of that fight, had coordinated the southern flank, directed scouts through treacherous terrain, ensured supplies reached the front lines when exhaustion nearly broke their formation. But no one below mentioned her name. No one raised a cup in her direction. Ilara's fingers curled around the cold stone. She wore a simple gray dress. No adornment, no pack colors. Her dark auburn hair fell loose around her shoulders, unstyled, unremarkable. She had learned over 18 months as Luna that invisibility was safer than visibility. Expectations were lower. Disappointment was quieter. Below, Alpha Kyle Draven stood at the center of it all. He was magnificent. Even she could admit that, even now. 6'4" of raw muscle and dominance, his black hair pushed back from a face that could have been carved from the mountains themselves. Sharp jaw, storm gray eyes, a scar cutting through his left eyebrow from some battle long before her time. He wore his authority like a second skin, every movement deliberate, every glance a command. When Kyle Draven entered a room, the room felt it. Right now, he was laughing. His head was thrown back, genuine amusement lighting his features as he listened to something the woman beside him said. Sarah Nightshade, daughter of the Beta family. Blonde, poised, effortlessly beautiful in a way that made Ilara feel like smudged charcoal next to polished gold. Sarah's hand rested lightly on Kyle's forearm, a touch so casual, so comfortable, it spoke of familiarity Ilara had never earned. The mate bond hummed faintly in Ilara's chest. It was always there, that golden thread connecting her to Kyle, but it had grown thinner over the months, stretched, frayed. He never acknowledged it in public, never reached for her through the bond the way other mated pairs did. She had stopped reaching first after the 4th month, when her tentative attempts were met with silence so complete she thought the bond itself had rejected her. More wine, Alpha? Sarah's voice carried up to the balcony, warm and musical. Only if you're pouring, Kyle replied, grinning. The crowd around them laughed. Someone clapped Kyle on the shoulder. Another warrior raised his cup. Ilara's hand moved unconsciously to her abdomen. Beneath the loose fabric of her dress, barely noticeable yet, a life was growing. 7 weeks. She had confirmed it 3 days ago, alone in her quarters, staring at the small vial that turned blue in the presence of wolf pregnancy hormones. She hadn't told anyone, hadn't known how to tell anyone, least of all Kyle, who looked at her with the warmth of a man reviewing tax records. Their mating had been arranged, a political move orchestrated by the Council of Elders after Kyle's father died and the pack needed stability. Ilara had been nobody, a low-ranking wolf from the eastern border, daughter of a scout who'd died in service. But her bloodline was old, her lineage technically noble, even if her circumstances weren't. Mating her to Kale had satisfied tradition without threatening the established power families. The bond had snapped into place the moment they completed the ritual. She had felt it, a rush of recognition so profound it had driven her to her knees. This was her mate, her fated mate, confirmed by the bond itself. Kale had stood over her, helped her rise, and said, "Welcome to Iron Pine Ridge, Luna Ilara. I trust you'll fulfill your duties appropriately." That was 18 months ago. Since then, she had fulfilled every duty. Managed the pack house, coordinated with the healers, attended every council meeting, every ceremonial function, every God's damned border inspection. She had bitten back opinions, swallowed pride, smiled when expected, and stayed silent when not addressed. She had shared Kael's bed when the bond demanded it. Brief, efficient encounters that left her feeling more alone than before, and retreated to her separate chambers afterward. No one had told her being Luna would feel like being a ghost in her own life. "Speech! Speech!" The chant rose from the crowd below. Kael raised his hands, and silence fell instantly. That was power, true, absolute power, 200 wolves holding their breath for his words. "Tonight, we celebrate more than victory," Kael began, his voice carrying effortlessly through the hall. "We celebrate what it means to be Iron Pine. Strength, unity, the willingness to fight for what's ours." Cheers erupted. Ilara watched, detached, as pride blazed across the faces below. "But strength isn't just in battle," Kael continued. "It's in strategy, in making the right alliances, in ensuring our pack's future through intelligent decisions, not just brute force." His eyes swept the crowd and landed, briefly, on Sarah. Ilara's breath caught. "Some bonds," Kael said, still looking at Sarah, "are forged in fire. Others—" He paused, and his gaze flicked upward, not quite to where Ilara stood, but close. "Are strategic conveniences. Necessary arrangements that serve the pack's stability." The words hung in the air. Strategic conveniences. Necessary arrangements. Ilara's vision tunneled. The noise of the hall faded to white static. Her hand pressed harder against her stomach, where a tiny heartbeat fluttered alongside her own. He was talking about their bond, their mating bond. The sacred fated connection that was supposed to be unbreakable, undeniable. He had just reduced it to political strategy in front of the entire pack. "Of course, that doesn't diminish their value," Kael added smoothly, raising his cup. "All pieces have their place on the board." "To Iron Pine! To Iron Pine!" the crowd roared back. Ilara turned and walked away. Her feet moved automatically, carrying her down the back staircase, through the servants' corridor, out into the cold night air. She didn't run. Running would mean she felt something. Instead, she walked with measured steps across the courtyard, past the training grounds, toward the small garden on the eastern edge of the pack house. It was only when she reached the stone bench beneath the silver birch tree that her legs gave out. She sat, breathed, looked up at the stars scattered across the black sky. Strategic convenience. She had known, of course she had known, that their mating wasn't a love match, had accepted that Kael didn't choose her, that duty bound them together. But some small, pathetic part of her had believed that time would change things, that if she proved herself capable, reliable, useful, he might eventually see her as more than an obligation. That hope died tonight. Ilara placed both hands over her abdomen. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the life growing there. "I'm sorry I brought you into this." The baby couldn't hear her yet, couldn't understand, but she felt the truth settling into her bones with absolute clarity. She could not raise a child here, could not watch her son or daughter grow up invisible, unwanted, a strategic convenience like their mother, could not teach them that love was supposed to feel like slow suffocation, that mates were supposed to look through you like glass. The mate bond pulled in her chest. Kael, probably wondering vaguely where his Luna had gone, if he noticed at all. She had never blocked him before, had never even tried. Now she reached for the golden thread and wrapped it in ice, in stone, in every defense she could muster until the connection faded to almost nothing. His confusion flickered through before she shut it down completely. Good. Let him wonder. Ilara stood. Her decision crystallized with each breath. She would leave. Not dramatically, not with confrontation or explanations. She would simply go. Disappear into the wilderness beyond pack borders, where no territory claimed dominance, where a wolf could survive on instinct and will alone. It would be brutal, dangerous. She was pregnant, alone, with minimal survival training beyond basic wolf skills. But staying was impossible. She had been invisible here for 18 months. It would take them days to even notice she was gone. Elara moved through the pack house like a shadow. Her quarters were in the east wing, smaller than the Alpha's suite, separated by 3 corridors and a lifetime of emotional distance. She packed quickly, a sturdy leather satchel filled with essentials. 2 changes of clothes, a hunting knife, flint and steel, a water flask, dried meat and grain from the kitchens, stolen in small amounts over the past 3 days since she'd confirmed the pregnancy. Not enough to be noticed missing, just enough to survive the first week. She left behind everything that marked her as Luna: the ceremonial robes, the silver circlet, the official documents and correspondence. Let them find her quarters empty of her but full of the role, proof that she had never really been anything more than a placeholder anyway. No note, no explanation. They didn't deserve one. The pack house was still alive with celebration when she slipped out through the kitchen entrance near midnight. The staff were all in the great hall, enjoying the festivities. No one saw her cross the courtyard. No one saw her pass through the eastern gate, where the guards were too drunk to care about a single wolf in traveling clothes heading toward the forest. By the time she reached the tree line, her heart was pounding. Not from fear, but from something that felt dangerously close to freedom. Elara paused at the edge of Iron Pine territory. One more step, and she would cross the boundary. The mate bond would stretch, then strain, then finally begin to weaken with distance. Kael would feel it eventually. A Luna leaving Packlands should trigger immediate alarm. But surrounded by celebration, his attention fragmented, it might take him hours to notice the bond fading. Hours was all she needed. She stepped across the boundary. The bond pulled sharply, a brief flare of pain in her chest. Then it settled into a dull ache, already beginning to numb with distance. Elara shifted. Her wolf form emerged in a ripple of transformation, smaller than most pack wolves, her coat a deep russet that blended with autumn forests. Not impressive, not powerful, but hers, undeniably, completely hers. She ran. Dawn found her 15 miles from Iron Pine Ridge. Elara had pushed through the night, putting as much distance as possible between herself and the territory. Her paws ached, her muscles screamed. The pregnancy made everything harder. She tired faster, grew hungry quicker, had to stop twice to drink from streams when normally she could run for hours. But she was out. The forest around her was wild, unclaimed land, neutral territory where pack law didn't reach. Dangerous, yes. Rogues sometimes hid here, and predators larger than wolves hunted these woods. But also free. Completely, terrifyingly free. She shifted back to human form beside a small creek, gasping. Her clothes were torn from the transformation, her feet bloody. She drank deeply from the creek, then collapsed against a tree trunk. Now what? The question sat heavy in her mind. She had escaped, but escape was only step 1. Survival was step 2, and she had approximately 34 weeks to figure out how to bring a baby into the world alone, with no pack, no healer, no support system. Panic tried to surface. She shoved it down. "One day at a time," she said aloud, her voice hoarse. "Find shelter, find food, stay alive today. Tomorrow can wait." Her hand moved to her stomach again. "We can do this," she whispered. "We have to." The baby didn't answer, of course, but something in Elara's chest, not the mate bond, something older and deeper, settled with quiet certainty. She would survive this. She would make sure her child never felt invisible. And if that meant building a life from nothing in the wilderness, surrounded by danger, so be it. Better to be seen by no one than to be looked through by everyone. 3 days later, Iron Pine Ridge. Kael stood in Elara's empty quarters staring at the untouched bed. She had been gone for 3 days. 3 days. And he had only noticed yesterday morning when Marcus, his beta, mentioned in passing that the Luna hadn't attended the morning council meeting. Even then, Kael had assumed she was avoiding him after his speech. He'd felt her block the bond that night, had registered vague irritation before returning his attention to the celebration. But she hadn't appeared for the evening meal either, or the next morning. By the second day, when her chambers remained dark and her scent began to fade from the pack house, real concern set in. Now, standing in her private sitting room, Kael felt something cold settle in his gut. She had left. Not just left the pack house for a walk, not retreated to some corner to sulk. She had left Iron Pine territory entirely. The bond stretched thin and distant, a thread pulled so taut it barely registered. He could still feel her, alive, conscious, but far, too far. Alpha. Marcus stood in the doorway, his expression grim. The Eastern Gate guards remember seeing someone matching her description 3 nights ago. Heading toward the forest, they thought she was just taking a walk. At midnight, Kael said flatly. They were celebrating Alpha. They didn't think clearly. Kael's voice could have cut stone. Assemble a search party. I want trackers in the woods within the hour. Already done. But Alpha, Marcus hesitated. The bond. Can you track her through it? Kael reached for the mate bond instinctively, found it buried under layers of ice he hadn't realized she was capable of constructing. She had shut him out so completely, so thoroughly, that only the faintest golden thread remained, just enough to confirm she lived, but not enough to locate her. She's blocking me, he admitted, the words tasting like failure. Marcus's eyebrows rose. I've never heard of a Luna being able to block an Alpha that completely. Neither had Kael. It should have been impossible. The Alpha bond was supposed to override everything, give him access to every pack member's location and emotional state. But Alara had somehow found a way to lock him out, which meant she had been planning this, had practiced blocking him. For how long? Find her, Kael ordered. I don't care if you have to track her to the edge of the world. Bring her back. Marcus nodded and left quickly. Kael turned back to the room, really looked at it for the first time. It was empty. Not just of Alara, but of personality. The furniture was standard pack issue. No personal items on the shelves, no books, no trinkets, no photographs. The walls were bare except for a single landscape painting that had probably come with the room. Even her clothes, he checked the wardrobe, were basic, functional, identical, like a uniform. How had he never noticed? He crossed to the small desk near the window, a single drawer slightly ajar. Inside, official Luna correspondence, neatly organized. Reports from the healers, supply inventories, schedules for pack events. All in her careful handwriting, every document completed perfectly. No diary, no personal letters. Nothing that indicated an inner life beyond duty. Kael's hand tightened on the drawer handle. Some bonds are strategic conveniences, necessary arrangements that serve the pack's stability. His own words echoed back at him. He had meant them as reassurance to the pack, a way to acknowledge that yes, his mating was arranged, but that didn't make it invalid. Had meant to convey that duty could be honorable even without passion. But standing here in this empty room, he realized how they must have sounded to her. Like dismissal, like confirmation that she was exactly what she feared. Invisible, interchangeable, a checkbox marked on the pack's requirements list. The bond pulled weakly in his chest. Somewhere out there, Alara was alive, moving, surviving. Without him. Without the pack. Without wanting to come back. Damn it, Kael breathed. A knock at the door. One of the pack healers, an older woman named Thea, stepped inside. Alpha, I heard the Luna is missing. I thought you should know. She came to me 8 days ago. Kael's attention sharpened. For what? Thea's expression was carefully neutral. She requested a pregnancy test, standard procedure. I provided the kit and sent her away. She never returned with results, so I assumed it was negative. The world tilted. Pregnancy, Kael repeated slowly. Yes, Alpha. It's not uncommon for newly mated pairs to check, especially after... She stopped, clearly deciding not to finish that sentence. Especially after they'd been mated for 18 months, long enough that pack members would start to wonder why there was no heir. Did she say anything else? Kael demanded. No, she was very quiet, but... Thea hesitated. She looked tired, Alpha. Not physically, emotionally. I asked if she needed anything, and she said she was fine. I should have pressed. Kael's mind raced. Pregnancy tests. 8 days ago. 3 days before she disappeared. If it was positive. If she was carrying his child. And she ran anyway. Get out, he said quietly. Thea fled. Kael stood alone in his mate's abandoned quarters, the weight of his failure crushing down like a physical force. She hadn't just left because of a careless speech. She had left carrying his heir, choosing the wilderness over him, over the pack, over everything that should have protected her. What kind of alpha made his Luna feel so alone that she would rather risk death alone than stay? The answer burned. His kind. The bond pulled again, weaker now. She was still moving, still putting distance between them. Cale closed his eyes and did something he had never done before. He reached through the bond, not with authority, not with demand, but with a single, desperate question. Come back, please. The ice didn't crack. She didn't respond. But somewhere, far away, he felt her pause. Just for a moment. Then keep walking. That single moment of hesitation, when Alara felt Kael's desperate plea through the bond, lasted exactly 3 heartbeats. Then she kept walking. The forest swallowed her deeper with each mile. Dawn light filtered through dense canopy, painting the world in shades of green and shadow. Her wolf form moved on instinct now, paws finding purchase on roots and stone, nose tracking water sources and potential shelter. The pregnancy slowed her, but adrenaline and sheer stubborn will kept her moving. By midday, she found what she was looking for. A rocky overhang jutted from a hillside, creating a shallow cave barely tall enough to stand in. Not ideal, but defensible. The entrance faced south, away from prevailing winds. A stream ran 30 yards downslope, fresh water, essential. The surrounding forest was thick with game trails. She could smell deer, rabbit, even wild boar. Alara shifted back to human form and immediately doubled over, retching. Morning sickness. The healer's pamphlet had warned her it would get worse before it got better. She dry-heaved until her ribs ached, then collapsed against the cave wall, gasping. "This is fine," she muttered to herself. "Totally fine. Just need to build a shelter, find food, avoid predators, and grow a whole human. Easy." The absurdity of it almost made her laugh. Instead, she cried. Not pretty crying, ugly, shoulder-shaking sobs that tore out of her chest like physical things. She cried for the life she'd left behind, even though she hated it. Cried for the mate who had never wanted her. Cried for the baby growing inside her who deserved so much more than a mother fleeing into wilderness with nothing but a knife and broken hope. When the tears finally stopped, she felt hollowed out. Empty. Good. Empty meant room to rebuild. Alara wiped her face and got to work. The first week was hell. She gathered pine branches and wove them into a crude windbreak across the cave entrance, collected stones to create a fire ring just inside the overhang where smoke could escape but rain couldn't reach. Her hunting knife, barely 6 inches of steel, became everything: cutting tool, weapon, eating utensil. She carved stakes to dry meat, sharpened a branch into a digging stick for roots, even fashioned a basic fishing spear from a sapling. Food was the immediate crisis. The dried meat from iron pine lasted 3 days. After that, she was on her own. Fishing proved easier than hunting. She spent hours waist-deep in the freezing stream, spear poised, waiting for the flash of silver scales. Her first successful catch, a trout barely 8 inches long, felt like conquering a kingdom. She ate it raw, too hungry and tired to wait for fire, scales and all. It tasted like victory. Hunting was harder. Her wolf form could track prey, but the pregnancy made her clumsy. She misjudged distances, tired too quickly, couldn't match the speed of healthy deer. After 4 failed hunts, she adjusted strategy, focused on smaller game. Rabbits, squirrels. Once, a groundhog that had been too slow leaving its burrow. She learned to be patient, to wait hours for a single opportunity, to make every strike count because she wouldn't get a second chance. The pregnancy complicated everything. Morning sickness struck at random, sometimes dawn, sometimes noon, once while she was actively stalking a rabbit. She had to eat constantly to keep her energy up, which meant hunting and foraging consumed entire days. Sleep became fractured, interrupted by the need to pee every few hours or the baby pressing on organs in uncomfortable ways. And the bond. Always, always the bond. Cale reached for her constantly those first days. She felt him searching, pushing against her defenses, trying to locate her through the mate connection. Each attempt was a knife scraping against her mental shields. She kept the ice walls firm, but it cost energy she couldn't afford to waste. On the 8th day, his attempts stopped. Alara told herself she was relieved. The hollow ache in her chest called her a liar. Day 14. Iron Pine Ridge. Marcus dropped a leather-bound journal on Kael's desk with enough force to rattle the ink bottles. "We found this in the South Tower," the beta said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "Hidden in Counselor Varen's private quarters." Kael looked up from the maps he'd been studying, search grids, expanding circles around Iron Pine territory, all of them useless. 2 weeks of intensive searching had yielded nothing. Elara had vanished as completely as if the earth had swallowed her. "Varen?" Kael repeated. The head counselor was a fixture in pack politics, had served his father before him. What does he have to do with Elara's disappearance? "Read it," Marcus said grimly. Kael opened the journal. The first entry was dated 3 months after his mating ceremony. "The new Luna is proving more resilient than anticipated. Despite clear social isolation, she continues performing her duties adequately. This is problematic. A stronger Luna might eventually gain influence, which would threaten the Council's autonomy. Recommendation: maintain current strategy of exclusion while monitoring for weakness." Kael's blood went cold. He flipped pages. More entries, spanning months. Each one detailed deliberate efforts to isolate Elara, suggesting to pack members that the Luna preferred solitude, spreading whispers that she was cold and unfriendly, even rearranging schedules so she missed key social events and looked absent or incompetent. The Alpha shows no particular attachment to his mate. This works in our favor. As long as the bond remains weak, she poses no real threat. Continue encouraging his attention toward more suitable alternatives. Sarah Nightshade remains the ideal candidate for influence. The journal entry from 2 weeks ago made Kael's hands shake. Luna Elara visited the healers requesting pregnancy confirmation. If positive, this accelerates our timeline significantly. Heir through her bloodline legitimizes her position unacceptably. Recommendation: increase pressure. Make her position untenable before she can announce pregnancy. Force her departure through social isolation if possible. The next entry was dated 3 days before Elara disappeared. Operation successful. The Luna has been sufficiently marginalized. The Alpha's public dismissal of their bond at the Victory Feast should provide final confirmation of her worthlessness. Prediction: she will either retreat into complete invisibility or leave entirely. Either outcome serves our purposes. Kael stood so abruptly his chair crashed backward. "Where's Varen?" His voice came out wolf rough, barely human. "Detained in the lower chambers," Marcus said, "awaiting your judgment." "He engineered this." Kael's hands crushed the journal edges. Everything. Every moment she felt invisible. Every time she was excluded. It was planned. "It gets worse," Marcus said quietly. "We found correspondence with the Shadowfang pack. Varen was feeding them intelligence about our defenses, our patrol routes. The border skirmish we won 2 weeks ago? We were never supposed to win. They planned for Iron Pine to take heavy casualties, weaken our position, make us vulnerable to a leadership challenge." The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. A weak Luna meant a weak Alpha bond meant an Alpha vulnerable to political maneuvering. Varen had been positioning himself and his chosen candidates to step into power once Kael's leadership was sufficiently undermined, and Elara had been the opening move, the sacrificial piece. "He used her," Kael said, the words barely audible. "Used her loneliness, her isolation, made her believe she was worthless so she would leave, and I would look weak for losing my mate. Except she left before he could leverage it," Marcus pointed out. "She disappeared so completely, we can't even find her to prove she's gone. It actually made you look stronger, like you're so focused on the pack you don't need a mate distracting you." The irony was acid on Kael's tongue. He had spent 2 weeks telling himself Elara left because she was weak, couldn't handle being Luna, had been selfish and cowardly to abandon her responsibilities. Instead, she had walked away from a systematically orchestrated campaign to destroy her spirit, and he had helped them do it. "I need to find her," Kael said, the words a vow. "Not because she's Luna. Not because of duty or politics or pack stability. I need to find her because I failed her, and she deserves to know the truth." Marcus studied him for a long moment. "You're going yourself." "Yes." "The council will object. You can't leave the pack without leadership." "You're beta. Lead in my absence." Kyle was already moving toward the door. Execute Varen for treason. Send messages to the other council members that anyone involved in his schemes can confess now or face investigation later. Reinforce the borders. And if I'm not back in a month, you'll be back, Marcus said firmly. Find your mate, Alpha. Bring her home. Kyle paused at the threshold. What if she doesn't want to come home? Then you convince her. You're an Alpha. Figure it out. Day 21. 1. The Wilderness. Alara had just finished skinning a rabbit when the scent hit her. Wolf, male, moving fast through the forest, heading directly toward her position. Her heart jumped into her throat. She dropped the rabbit and grabbed her knife, backing toward the cave entrance. The wind shifted, carrying more information. Definitely wolf, definitely tracking, and the scent was familiar. No, not possible. She pressed against the cave wall, knife raised, as a massive dark wolf burst through the tree line. Kyle. He shifted mid-stride, human form emerging as he skidded to a halt 20 feet from her position. He was filthy, mud-streaked, hair wild, clothes torn. He looked like he'd run the entire distance without stopping. Their eyes met. Alara's grip tightened on the knife. Leave. Alara, I said leave. The command came out wolf rough. You have no authority here. This isn't Packland. Kale raised his hand slowly, showing empty palms. I'm not here as your Alpha. Then what are you here as? She didn't lower the knife. My mate. Because we both know that's just a strategic convenience, right? A necessary arrangement? He flinched. Actually flinched. You heard that, he said quietly. The entire pack heard it, Alara shot back. You announced to everyone that our bond means nothing, that I mean nothing. So why are you here, KL? Need me to sign some paperwork dissolving the mating? Happy to do it. Just leave the documents and go. I didn't know. The words burst out of him. I didn't know what Varen was doing, the isolation, the exclusion, the way everyone treated you. It was orchestrated. He was manipulating both of us. Alara laughed, the sound sharp and broken. Oh, so you're not responsible for ignoring me for 18 months? That was all Varen's fault? No. Kyle voice went rough. No, that was me. I was a coward and a fool, and I have no excuse. But the systematic campaign to make you invisible, to make you feel worthless, that was Varen. I found his journal. He documented everything. She wanted to believe the pain in his voice was real, wanted to believe this mattered, but wanting had nearly destroyed her. It doesn't change anything, she said coldly. Varen didn't force you to dismiss our bond publicly. He didn't force you to keep me at arm's length. He didn't make you treat me like an inconvenient obligation. You're right, Kyle agreed. He didn't. I did that myself because I was afraid. That caught her off guard. Afraid? Of the bond. He took a single step forward. She raised the knife higher, and he stopped. The mate bond is supposed to be this sacred, perfect thing. But I felt it the moment we completed the ritual, this overwhelming connection to someone I didn't know, didn't choose. It terrified me. So I kept you distant, kept everything controlled and manageable. I told myself it was duty, that we were both just fulfilling our roles. And now? Alara demanded. What changed? You left, Chasni, Kyle said simply. You walked away from everything, pack, security, home, rather than stay invisible. And then I found out why. His eyes dropped to her abdomen. Is it true? Are you pregnant? Alara's free hand moved instinctively to her stomach. That was answer enough. Kale's expression shattered. You were carrying my child, and you still chose to leave. Chose to risk everything rather than stay with me. Yes, Alara said, and meant it. Why? Because my child deserves better than growing up invisible. The words ripped out of her. Better than watching their mother be dismissed and ignored. Better than learning that love is supposed to feel like slow death. I would rather raise this baby alone in the wilderness than teach them that being tolerated is the same as being valued. Silence fell between them. Kyle stood frozen, his face doing something complicated. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. You're right. Alara blinked. What? You're right, he repeated louder. Everything you said. You're right. I made you invisible. I made our bond feel like a prison, and I have no right to ask you to come back. Then why are you here? Because you deserve to know the truth about Varen, about what was done to you. Kale's hands clenched into fists. And because I need you to know that I see you now, really see you. The strength it took to survive out here alone, pregnant, with nothing, most wolves wouldn't last a week. You've made it 3. 3 weeks, Elara corrected automatically, then cursed herself for engaging. Kale's eyes swept over the cave, the fire ring, the rabbit carcass, the makeshift tools. You built this. All of this. Alone. I didn't have a choice. Yes, you did, he countered. You could have stayed, could have let the pack support you, even if I was too blind to see what I had. But you chose independence over security, chose the wilderness over comfort. That's not weakness, Elara. That's the strongest thing I've ever seen. She wanted to hate that his words affected her, wanted the armor she'd built over 3 weeks to hold firm. Instead, she felt tears burning behind her eyes. It doesn't matter, she managed. Even if you see me now, even if Varen is gone, nothing's changed about us. You don't love me, Kael, and I can't spend my life waiting for scraps of affection from someone who sees me as an obligation. What if I want to change that? You can't just decide to feel differently. I know, Kael interrupted. I know I can't force feelings, but I can choose to try. Choose to tear down the walls I built. Choose to actually know the woman I'm bound to instead of keeping her at a distance. Elara shook her head. It's too late. Is it? He took another step forward. This time, she didn't raise the knife. Because you're still alive. Our child is still alive. And the bond... He pressed a hand to his chest. The bond is still there, Elara. You're blocking it, building walls, but it's still there. That means it's not too late. I won't come back to Ironpine, she said flatly. I'm not asking you to. That surprised her. What? I'm asking for a chance, Kael said quietly. Not as your alpha. Not because of duty or politics. I'm asking for a chance to prove I can be the mate you deserve. Here, in the wilderness, away from pack politics and expectations. Let me help you survive. Let me prove that I'm willing to fight for this bond instead of taking it for granted. Elara stared at him. You're serious. Completely. You're the alpha of Ironpine Ridge. You can't just abandon your pack to play wilderness survival. Marcus is beta. He can lead in my absence. And I'm not playing. Kale's voice turned fierce. You're my mate. You're carrying my child. Nothing is more important than that. I understand that now. So yes, I'm serious. Let me stay. Let me help. And if after a month you still want nothing to do with me, I'll respect that and leave. Every instinct screamed at Elara to say no, to send him away, protect herself from the hope that was trying to bloom in her chest. But she was exhausted. Bone deep, soul tired, exhausted. And the baby growing inside her deserved better than a mother too proud to accept help when it was offered. 1 month, she heard herself say. You stay, you help, you pull your own weight. No alpha commands, no mate bond pressure. You're just another wolf helping me survive. And at the end of the month, we reassess. Kale's expression lit with something that looked dangerously like hope. I can work with that. I'm serious, Kale. One wrong move, one moment of you treating me like an obligation instead of a person, and you leave. Immediately. Understood. And you sleep outside the cave. Understood. Elara finally lowered the knife. There's a rabbit that needs skinning. If you're staying, make yourself useful. Kael moved toward the carcass, then paused. Elara? What? Thank you. The words were simple, but the emotion behind them was anything but. For giving me a chance I don't deserve. She turned away before he could see her face. Don't thank me yet. Surviving out here isn't romantic, Kael. It's brutal. You might change your mind by morning. I won't. Famous last words, she thought. But as she watched him crouch by the rabbit, an alpha used to servants and comfort, now covered in mud and willing to skin game in the wilderness, something small and fragile flickered to life in her chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe, possibly, the first seed of hope that things could be different if he meant what he said. if he could follow through, if she could survive lowering her walls long enough to find out. Day 22. 22. Kyle woke to cold rain and the realization that wilderness survival was, in fact, brutal. He'd spent the night outside the cave as promised, sheltered only by a pine tree that proved woefully inadequate against the storm that rolled in around midnight. By dawn, he was soaked, shivering, and covered in pine needles that stuck to his skin like accusations. Alara emerged from the cave looking dry and well-rested. "Morning," she said cheerfully. "Sleep well?" He knew a test when he heard one. "Great, very refreshing." Her lips twitched, almost a smile. "Liar. There's a tarp in my pack. You can use it to build a proper shelter, but you're gathering your own materials." "Fair enough." The day dissolved into hard physical labor. Kyle chopped branches with a hand axe Alara had apparently fashioned from stone and wood, crude but effective. He built a lean-to structure against a boulder, creating a space barely big enough to lie down in, but at least waterproof. Then he helped reinforce the cave entrance, gather firewood, and clean the rabbit carcass from yesterday. Alara watched him work with a critical eye, correcting his technique when he tried to start a fire wrong, showing him how to properly gut a fish he'd attempted to catch. She was a good teacher, patient when he was genuinely trying, ruthlessly honest when he was doing something stupid. By midday, he was exhausted. "How long have you been doing this alone?" he asked, collapsing beside the fire ring. 3 weeks, Alara said. She was weaving pine needles into some kind of basket, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. "The first week was the hardest. I almost gave up twice." "What stopped you?" Her hand moved to her stomach. "This. I couldn't give up because they can't survive without me, so I figured it out." Kyle watched her profile, the determined set of her jaw, the focus in her eyes, the quiet strength in every movement. How had he ever thought her weak? "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "You've said that. I'll keep saying it until you believe me. That might take a while." But her tone was less sharp than before. They worked in silence for a time. Then Alara spoke, her voice carefully neutral. "Tell me about Varen. What happened after I left?" Kyle explained everything, the journal, the manipulation, the treason. Alara listened without interruption, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "So everyone knew," she finally said. "Everyone knew he was isolating me, and no one said anything. Some didn't realize it was deliberate. But others," Kyle's jaw tightened, "others benefited from keeping you powerless. I've initiated investigations. Anyone involved will face consequences." "And Sarah?" "She wasn't part of the conspiracy. Just someone Varen positioned to distract me from you." Kale met her eyes. "It worked. I'm not proud of that." Alara's hand stilled on the basket. "Did you sleep with her?" "No." The answer was immediate and honest. "I won't pretend I didn't consider it. She was available, friendly, and you had made it clear you wanted nothing to do with me. But the bond wouldn't let me. Every time I thought about it, I felt sick. The mate bond might be complicated, but it's loyal." "Lucky me," Alara said dryly. But some of the tension in her shoulders eased. Day 28. The month was almost over. Kale had kept his word. He pulled his weight, learned quickly, never once tried to command or pressure. They hunted together, built together, survived together. At night, he retreated to his lean-to while she slept in the cave. During the day, they worked side by side with careful distance between them. But something was shifting. Small moments accumulated. Kyle instinctively stepping between her and a startled boar, his body a shield before conscious thought caught up. Alara catching herself watching him work, appreciating the efficiency of movement he'd developed. Shared meals where conversation flowed easier, where she told stories about her childhood and he shared memories of his father. The walls between them were still there, but they were cracking. On the 28th day, disaster struck. Alara was checking fishing traps downstream when she smelled them. Rogues. 3 distinct scents, male, moving fast through the forest. Terror shot through her. Rogues were wolves without packs, often exiled for violence or madness. They survived on the fringes, desperate and dangerous. And she was alone, pregnant, vulnerable. She ran. Her wolf form burst through the transformation, instinct taking over. She sprinted toward the cave, toward Kael, toward safety. Behind her, the rogues howled. They'd caught her scent. She burst into the clearing. Kael! He emerged from his lean-to instantly, already shifting. His wolf form, massive, black as midnight, placed itself between her and the tree line. The three rogues crashed through the underbrush. They were lean, scarred, eyes wild with hunger, and worse. The largest, a gray-brown male with half an ear missing, snarled when he saw them. "Two wolves," the rogue said, shifting to human form. His companions followed suit. "One pregnant female, one male. This should be fun." "Leave," Kael ordered, his voice carrying alpha command even here, outside Packlands. The rogues laughed. "No pack law here, Alpha," Half-Ear said, "and we haven't eaten in days. Your mate looks tender." Kael's growl shook the clearing. "Touch her and die." Big words. "There's three of us. One of you, and she's useless. Do the math." Alara shifted back to human form, fury overriding fear. "I'm not useless." "Alara, get back!" She ignored Kael, addressing the rogues directly. "You want to fight? Fine. But understand this. He's an alpha, prime, trained since childhood, and I've spent a month surviving alone in these woods while pregnant. We're not easy prey." Half-Ear's eyes narrowed. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Alara's smile was all teeth. "Try me." The rogues exchanged glances. Uncertainty flickered across their faces. Then Half-Ear lunged. Kael met him mid-leap, both wolves crashing together in a snarl of fur and fangs. The other two rogues split, one toward Kael, one toward Alara. She grabbed her hunting knife and dropped low, letting the rogue's momentum carry him past her. She slashed as he passed. Not deep, but enough to draw blood and make him think twice. The rogue spun, snarling. "You'll regret that." "Doubt it." They circled each other. Alara's mind raced. She was slower, weaker, pregnant. But she had something he didn't. Absolute commitment. She would die before letting him touch her child. The rogue lunged again. This time she didn't dodge. She stepped into the attack, using his own force against him. Her knife found the soft tissue under his jaw. Not fatal, but painful enough to make him stumble back, choking. Behind her, Kael was a whirlwind of violence. Two rogues down already, bleeding and unconscious. He turned toward Half-Ear just as the leader tried to flee. Kael's jaws closed around the rogue's throat. The fight was over in seconds. Silence fell over the clearing, broken only by heavy breathing. Kael shifted back to human form, blood on his mouth, eyes wild. "Alara!" "I'm fine," she managed. Her hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. "The baby's fine." He crossed to her in 3 strides, hands cupping her face, checking her for injuries. "You stabbed him. You actually stabbed him. I told you I wasn't useless." "I never thought—" Kael broke off, pressing his forehead against hers. "You terrified me. When he went for you, I thought, I know." Her hands came up to cover his. "I was scared too, but we survived." "We did." His voice was rough with emotion. "Together." The word hung between them. Together. Not Alpha and Luna, not obligation and duty. Together. Alara felt the ice around the mate bond crack. Just a hairline fracture, but there. She could feel Kael through it now. His fear, his relief, his desperate need to protect her. And beneath it all, something that felt dangerously like love. "The month's not over yet," she whispered. "I know. But maybe—" She swallowed hard. "Maybe we could talk about what comes after." Kael's eyes closed, relief washing over his features. "I'd like that." The rogues groaned. They needed to be dealt with, either killed or driven far enough away they wouldn't return. But for just a moment, Alara let herself lean into Kael's warmth, let herself feel the bond pulse between them, still damaged, still fragile, but alive. Healing. Together. The rogues were still breathing when Kael dragged their unconscious bodies to the forest edge and dumped them across the invisible boundary separating their territory from the deeper wilderness. A warning. Come back, and there would be no mercy. Alara watched from this cave entrance, arms wrapped around herself despite the afternoon warmth. The adrenaline crash had left her shaking, nauseous. Her hands still smelled like blood. "They won't return," Kyle said, rejoining her. "I made sure they understood. You could have killed them." "I should have." His voice was flat. "They threatened you. Threatened our child. By rights they should be dead. But they're not." "No." Kyle's jaw tightened. "Because you're right. Killing should be a last resort, not a first response. Even out here. Especially out here, where we're trying to build something different." Alara studied him. Mud-streaked, blood-spattered, exhausted. But his eyes held something new. Conviction. Not the arrogant certainty of an alpha used to obedience, but the hard-won belief of someone who'd actually thought about their choices. "Come inside," she said quietly. "You need to clean those wounds." It was the first time she'd invited him into the cave. Kyle followed wordlessly. The space was small, barely 15 feet deep, 10 feet wide. But Alara had made it hers. Dried herbs hung from cracks in the rock ceiling. Her sleeping pallet was layered with pine boughs and the tattered remains of her spare clothes, creating something almost comfortable. A flat stone served as a work surface, scattered with tools she'd crafted over weeks of necessity. In the corner, a small pile of smooth river stones. She'd been collecting them, though Kyle didn't know why. "Sit," Alara ordered, pointing to a boulder near the fire ring. Kale sat. She dampened a scrap of cloth in her water flask and approached cautiously. Even now, even after a month of working side by side, touching felt dangerous. Intimate. The mate bond hummed between them, stronger since the fight, as if shared danger had burned away some of the ice she'd built around it. Alara pressed the cloth to a cut on his shoulder. Kyle hissed, but didn't pull away. "This is going to scar," she said. "Good. Every scar tells a story." His eyes found hers. "This one will remind me of the day I watched you stab a rogue wolf to protect our child. Not a bad story." Heat crept up her neck. "I got lucky. If you hadn't taken down the other two—" "We worked together," Kale interrupted. "That's the story. Not you being helpless or me being the hero. Together, we survived." Alara moved the cloth to another wound, buying time to collect her thoughts. Her hands were steadier now, focusing on the practical task of cleaning injuries. But his words echoed in her mind. Together. "The month's up in 2 days," she said finally. "I know. And you want to talk about what comes next?" "Yes." Alara rinsed the cloth, watching pink water drip between her fingers. "I can't go back to Iron Pine Ridge, not to how things were. I'm not asking you to." "Then what are you asking?" Kale was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful, measured. "I'm asking for the chance to build something new, not the pack we left behind with all its politics and manipulation. Something honest, where you're not just Luna, you're my equal partner, where our child grows up seeing a bond built on respect, not just duty." "That sounds nice in theory," Alara said, "but we can't stay out here forever. Winter's coming. I'm due in 7 months. We need shelter, supplies, a healer for the birth." "I know." Kael caught her hand gently, stilling her nervous movements, "which is why I'm proposing we go back, but on your terms. You decide what changes need to happen. You decide what role you want to play. And I back you, completely, publicly, without question." Alara pulled her hand away. "You're the alpha. The pack won't accept that kind of shift. Then they can challenge me for leadership and lose." His certainty wasn't arrogance. It was fact. "I've spent a month learning to survive in the wilderness. I'm stronger now, not weaker. And any wolf who can't accept their Luna as an equal partner doesn't belong in my pack." "Our pack," Alara corrected automatically, then froze. "I didn't mean—" "Say it again." "What?" "Say our pack." Kael's expression was intense. "Because that's what it should be, not mine. Ours. Equal leadership, equal voice, equal power." The words hung between them like a thrown gauntlet. Alara wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe this month had fundamentally changed something, that they could actually build the partnership he described. But trust was a muscle she'd let atrophy, and exercising it again hurt. "I need to think," she said. "Take all the time you need." "The baby won't wait forever." Then we'll figure it out before then. Kyle stood, careful not to crowd her in the small space. But Alara, whatever you decide, know this. I'm not the same wolf who let you walk away invisible. And I'll spend the rest of my life proving that to you, whether you give me another chance or not. He left before she could respond. Alara sank onto her sleeping pallet, hands trembling again. Not from fear this time, from possibility, from hope. And hope, she was learning, was the most dangerous thing of all. The decision came 2 nights later, delivered by Marcus. Alara was checking fish traps when she caught an unfamiliar scent, wolf, male, approaching cautiously from the south. Kael's posture shifted instantly to defensive, placing himself between her and the approaching threat. Then recognition flared in his eyes. "Stand down," he said. "It's Marcus." The beta emerged from the tree line in human form, hands raised peacefully. He looked exhausted, mud-spattered, hollow-eyed, like he'd run for days without stopping. "Alpha," Marcus said, relief flooding his features. "Thank the—" He caught himself. "Thank everything. I found you." "What's wrong?" Kael demanded. "Why are you here? The pack is intact. Mostly." Marcus's expression darkened. "But we have a problem. A big one." They moved to the cave where Marcus collapsed near the fire with the grateful exhaustion of someone who'd pushed themselves past all reasonable limits. Alara handed him water and dried meat without comment. He ate like a starving wolf. "Start from the beginning," Kael ordered. Marcus swallowed hard. "After you left, we executed Varen for treason as planned. Purged the council members involved in his conspiracy. It should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. No." Marcus's hands clenched. 2 weeks ago, Shadowfang Pack sent an envoy. They're demanding reparations for the border skirmish, claiming we provoked the attack, that our victory was built on false intelligence they say we fed to them. Alara's blood went cold. That's backwards. Varen was feeding information to Shadowfang, not from them. Exactly. But they're claiming the opposite, and they have documentation that looks convincing. Forged, obviously, but good enough that the Regional Council of Alphas is taking it seriously. Documentation from where? Kael's voice had gone dangerously quiet. "We don't know, but it gets worse." Marcus met his Alpha's eyes. "Shadowfang is demanding you appear before the Regional Council to answer charges of territory aggression. And if you don't, they'll declare war," Kael finished. "Not just war. They'll petition the Council to strip Iron Pine of its territory rights entirely. Claim we're unstable, that losing your Luna proves you're unfit for leadership, that the pack needs to be absorbed into Shadowfang for regional stability." Silence fell like a blade. Alara's mind raced. This was sophisticated, a multi-layered attack using Kael's absence and her disappearance as evidence of weakness. Shadowfang hadn't just survived their defeat, they'd weaponized it. "When's the hearing?" Kael asked. 10 days. In the neutral grounds at Silver Peak. Marcus hesitated. "Alpha, if you don't show with your Luna, they'll have the evidence they need. The Council will rule against us." "Then we show." Kael's voice was steel. "Kael, wait!" Alara started. "No." He turned to her, eyes blazing. "They're using you. Using your absence as proof that I'm weak, that our pack is fractured. We show up together, unified, and we destroy their narrative completely." "Or we walk into a trap," Alara countered. "Think about it. They're not just demanding your presence. They specifically want me there too. Why? What does my presence accomplish beyond optics?" Marcus and Kael exchanged glances. "She's right," Marcus said slowly. "They could challenge for leadership right there in front of the Council, with you away from Packlands, weakened from travel, and Alara." He stopped, clearly trying to find a diplomatic way to say it. "Pregnant and vulnerable," Alara finished flatly. "A liability you'd have to protect, splitting your focus. You're not a liability. In a fight, I am." The truth hurt, but ignoring it would hurt more. "I can defend myself against rogues, maybe. Against an Alpha in his prime, specifically trying to use me as leverage against you. I'm a target, Kael, and bringing me makes you vulnerable." "Then I don't bring you," Kael said. "I go alone, face the Council, and—" And they point to my continued absence as proof the pact is broken, Alara interrupted. Either way, we lose. So what do we do? Marcus asked, desperation creeping into his voice. Because 10 days doesn't give us many options. Alara stood abruptly and began pacing the small cave. Her mind worked through possibilities, discarding each as quickly as it formed. They needed something unexpected, something that would shift the entire framework of the confrontation. Then it hit her. What if I'm not absent? She said slowly. Both men looked at her. You just said coming with me is too dangerous, Kyle pointed out. No, I said being a vulnerable liability is dangerous. Alara's heart was pounding, the idea crystallizing with terrifying clarity. But what if I'm not vulnerable? What if instead of hiding my pregnancy, we make it the center of our position? I don't follow, Marcus said. Alara turned to face them, her voice gaining strength. Shadowfang's entire argument is based on the pack being unstable, but what's more stable than a mated pair producing an heir? We don't hide my pregnancy. We announce it, publicly, in front of the entire regional council. Kale's eyes widened. You want to declare the pregnancy at the hearing? More than that. I want to invoke the law of succession. Silence. Then Marcus breathed, That's brilliant. That's insane, Kyle countered. The law of succession hasn't been invoked in decades. It's archaic. And still legally binding, Alara cut in. If a Luna is carrying an acknowledged heir, any challenge to the Alpha's leadership can be delayed until after the birth and recovery period. It's designed to protect pregnant Lunas from being used as leverage in exactly this kind of political maneuvering. But invoking it requires the pregnancy to be verified by a neutral healer, Marcus said, in front of witnesses. You'd have to submit to examination. I know, Alara's jaw set. I'm willing. Kyle was shaking his head. This puts you in the spotlight, makes you the center of attention. After everything you've been through, everything you've said about not wanting to be visible, I said I didn't want to be invisible, Alara corrected. There's a difference. Being seen, really seen, as a person with agency and power, that's what I want. And this, standing in front of the regional council, claiming my place, protecting our pack and our child, that's being seen on my terms. They'll attack you, Kyle warned. Shadowfang won't just accept this. They'll dig into your background, question your worthiness, maybe even challenge the legitimacy of the pregnancy itself. Let them try. Alara's voice was cold steel. I survived 3 weeks alone in the wilderness while pregnant. I built shelter, hunted food, defended myself against rogues. Any wolf who questions my strength can face me directly and find out exactly how wrong they are. Marcus was grinning now. Alpha, she's right. This changes everything. The law of succession would force the council to delay any territory decisions. Give us time to expose Shadowfang's forged documents, rebuild our political position, and make Alara a target for every wolf who wants to prevent that delay, Kale finished. He crossed to her, hands gentle on her shoulders. Are you absolutely sure? Because once we do this, there's no going back. You'll be visible in ways you never were before, scrutinized, judged, possibly attacked. Alara met his eyes steadily. I've been invisible and I've been alone. Visible and together sounds better, even if it's dangerous. Something shifted in Kale's expression. Pride, maybe, or recognition. Then we do this together, he said, but on one condition. What? You train, every day between now and the hearing. Combat, defense, strategy. If someone comes for you, you'll be ready. I can work with that. And I'm assigning you a personal guard? Absolutely not. Alara, no guards, no handlers, no wolves treating me like fragile glass that might shatter. Her voice was firm. I'll train, I'll prepare, I'll be smart about security, but I won't be caged. That was the whole point of leaving. Kale looked like he wanted to argue. Then, visibly, he stepped back, respected her boundary. Okay, he said. No guards, but you don't go anywhere alone. I'm with you, or Marcus is, or someone you trust. Compromise? Compromise, Alara agreed. Marcus stood, energy returning despite his exhaustion. I'll head back immediately. Start preparing the pack for your return. Arrange the verification ceremony. Gather evidence against Shadowfang's forgeries. And strengthen the borders, Kyle added. If this goes wrong, They might attack directly rather than wait for council approval. Understood, Alpha. Marcus paused at the cave entrance. For what it's worth, I'm glad you found each other. Really found each other. The pack needs this version of you both. After he left, silence settled over the cave. Alara realized she was shaking again. Not from fear, from the enormity of what she'd just committed to. Hey, Kale's voice was soft. Second thoughts? Third and fourth thoughts, she admitted. This is terrifying. Yes. I could fail, could mess this up, cost us everything. Or you could succeed brilliantly and reshape pack politics forever. Kale's hands found hers. I've watched you survive impossible odds for a month. This? You've got this. I've never done anything like this before. Neither have I. That's why we're doing it together. He squeezed her hands gently. But Alara, if at any point this becomes too much, if you want to back out, I won't. But if you do, Kael. She silenced him with a look. I spent 18 months being the Luna who backed down, who made herself small, who let other people decide her value. I'm done with that version of myself. This is who I am now, the wolf who walked away from everything and survived. And that wolf doesn't back down from a fight. Pride blazed across his features. Then let's show them what we're made of. The next 7 days were brutal. True to his word, Kael trained her relentlessly. They started with basics, defensive stances, how to use her smaller size as an advantage, where to strike for maximum impact with minimum strength. Then they progressed to scenario work. What to do if surrounded, if attacked from behind, if someone tried to use her pregnancy against her. They'll go for your stomach, Kael said during one session, breathing hard. Try to threaten the baby to control you. You need to be ready. Show me. They drilled it over and over until her body knew the movements instinctively. Pivot, deflect, counter. Use their momentum against them. Never freeze. Between training sessions, they talked strategy. The council will want proof the pregnancy is legitimate, Alara said one evening, mapping out scenarios by firelight. Which means I need to submit to examination by their healer. What if they claim I'm lying or try to say the baby isn't yours? The mate bond proves paternity, Kael said. Any healer can sense it. The baby carries traces of both our essences. They can't fake that. Unless they claim the bond itself is invalid. On what grounds? That it was coerced. Political arrangement, remember? They could argue I was forced into mating, that the bond is artificial. It's not. Kael's voice was flat. The bond formed naturally the moment we completed the ritual. That's not something that can be manufactured. I know that. But they might argue it anyway, just to create doubt. They prepared for every angle, every possible attack. Alara's background, her low status, her time alone in the wilderness. Each potential weakness became something they addressed head-on, turning vulnerability into strength. They'll call you weak for leaving, Kael predicted. Then I'll call myself strong for surviving. They'll question your fitness to lead. Then I'll demonstrate exactly how fit I am. By the 7th day, Alara felt like a blade that had been hammered, folded, and sharpened until she could cut through stone. Still scared, yes, but ready. Marcus returned on the 8th day with supplies, fresh clothes, and news. The pack is ready, he reported. Word spread about your return. The remaining council members are nervous but supportive, and I've started investigating Shadowfang's documentation. There are inconsistencies, but we'll need time to prove forgery conclusively. How's morale? Kael asked. Honestly? Better than expected. Marcus smiled slightly. Turns out the pack respected you more for going after your mate than they would have for staying and pretending nothing was wrong. Shows strength of character, one wolf said. Shows you're not controlled by politics. Alara felt warmth bloom in her chest. Not all of Ironpine had been complicit in Varen's manipulation. Some wolves had simply been misled, and those wolves were ready to welcome her back. There's one more thing, Marcus said, his expression turning serious. Shadowfang's Alpha, Ronan Blackwater. He's bringing his entire inner circle to the hearing. 20 wolves, all combat trained. It's technically legal since it's neutral ground, but it sends a message. That they're prepared for violence, Alara said. Exactly. Then we bring our own inner circle, Kyle decided. You, obviously. The new council members. Our best warriors. Match their numbers. Show we're not intimidated. And me, Alara added. I'm not hiding in the background. I stand with you at the council table, visible and present. Both men looked at her. That's a direct challenge to their narrative, Marcus warned. They'll focus everything on you. Good. Alara's voice was steady. Let them. I'm ready. The journey to Silver Peak took 2 days. They traveled as a pack, 23 wolves moving through the forest in tight formation. Kyle and Alara at the center, surrounded by the strongest fighters. Marcus ranged ahead, scouting. 2 healers traveled with them, including old Thea, who had apologized tearfully to Alara for not seeing Varen's manipulation earlier. I should have questioned why you were always alone, Thea had said. Should have reached out, offered friendship. I'm sorry. You're here now, Alara had replied. That's what matters. The pack moved with purpose, covering ground quickly. Alara felt the mate bond humming between her and Kyle, stronger now, clearer. Not fully healed, not yet, but healing. Each shared glance, each moment of wordless coordination wove the bond tighter. On the second evening, as they made camp 5 miles from Silver Peak, Kale found her standing at the edge of their perimeter, staring toward the mountains. Nervous? He asked quietly. Terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He moved to stand beside her. You know they'll come at you hard tomorrow. I know. And you're sure you want to do this? Alara turned to face him. Do you remember what you said to me that first night in the wilderness, when you asked for a chance? I said I wanted to prove I could be the mate you deserve. You've proven it, Alara said softly. Every day for the last month, you've proven it. So now it's my turn. Tomorrow, I prove to everyone, including myself, that I can be the Luna this pack deserves. Not the invisible ghost they tolerated, the real thing. Kale's hand found hers. You already are. Then let's make sure they see it. That night, curled in their shared tent, another boundary dissolved over weeks of growing trust. Alara let herself imagine what came after. If they survived tomorrow, if they won. A pack rebuilt on honesty instead of manipulation. A partnership forged in wilderness and tempered in fire. A child raised seeing their parents as equals, as partners, as mates who chose each other even when fate forced their hands. It was worth fighting for, worth the fear, worth everything. What? Silver Peak rose from the forest like a stone fang. The neutral ground sprawled at its base, a massive clearing marked by ancient standing stones. The regional council met here 4 times a year, settling disputes that couldn't be resolved within individual packs. Today, the clearing was packed. Not just the council's 7 alphas seated in their ceremonial positions, but witnesses from a dozen packs. Word had spread. This wasn't just a hearing anymore. It was a spectacle. Shadow Fang pack was already there, arranged in perfect military formation. Ronan Blackwater stood at their center, a massive wolf with silver-streaked black hair and eyes like winter ice. He watched Iron Pines approach with predatory interest. Steady, Kyle murmured as they entered the clearing. Remember the plan. Alara lifted her chin and walked forward like she owned the ground beneath her feet. The council's head Alpha, an ancient wolf named Helena Stormcrest, raised her hand for silence. We convene to address charges brought by Shadow Fang Pack against Iron Pine Ridge, she announced. Alpha Ronan, present your case. Ronan stepped forward smoothly. Honorable Council, I bring evidence of territorial aggression and political instability that threatens regional peace. He gestured, and one of his wolves unrolled documents across the council's stone table. These communications show Iron Pine feeding false intelligence to Shadowfang, provoking an attack that justified their own territorial expansion. Furthermore, Ronan's eyes found Alara. Alpha Kael's recent abandonment of his pack to pursue his runaway Luna demonstrates unstable leadership. A pack cannot be secure when its alpha prioritizes personal matters over collective welfare. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Helena's gaze shifted to Kael. Alpha Kael, how do you respond? Kael stepped forward, but Alara moved with him. Side by side, equal position. The murmurs intensified. The documents are forgeries, Kael stated clearly. Created by a traitor within my own council who has since been executed for treason. We have evidence proving this, which we're prepared to present. As for the Luna's absence, Alara said, her voice carrying across the clearing with surprising strength. It was not abandonment. It was survival. I left a pack where I had been systematically isolated and undermined by the same traitor who forged those documents. I left to protect my life, and the life of my unborn child. Shocked silence. Ronan recovered first. A convenient claim, made with no proof. I have proof. Alara held up her hand, silencing him with sheer audacity. I invoke the law of succession. I carry Alpha Kale's heir, which any neutral healer can verify. And under that law, all challenges to Ironpine's leadership must be delayed until after the birth and my recovery. The clearing erupted. Helena's voice cut through the chaos. Silence! Order returned slowly. Helena's ancient eyes studied Alara with new interest. You invoke an old law, Luna Alara, one that requires verification and witness. Are you prepared to submit to examination? I am. And you understand that false claims carry severe penalties, including immediate exile and dissolution of pact bonds? I understand. Alara's voice didn't waver. I'm telling the truth. Verify it. Helena nodded slowly. Then we shall. Council healer, perform the examination. An elderly woman emerged from behind the standing stones, neutral, bound to the council rather than any individual pack. She approached Alara with professional detachment. This will require touch, the healer warned. Physical contact and essence reading. It may be uncomfortable. Do it, Alara said. The healer's hands pressed against Alara's abdomen, her eyes closing as she reached with senses beyond physical. The crowd watched in absolute silence. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then the healer's eyes opened. She turned to the council. The Luna speaks truth. She carries a child approximately 9 weeks into development. The essence signature matches both Alpha Kael and Luna Alara. The bond is genuine, the pregnancy legitimate. Ronan's expression darkened. This proves nothing except poor timing. It proves, Alara interrupted, her voice ringing out, that your entire argument is built on lies. You claim the pack is unstable? We're producing an heir. You claim the Alpha abandoned his responsibilities? He protected his mate and child from political manipulation. You claim I'm weak? She stepped forward, directly toward Ronan. I survived 3 weeks alone in the wilderness while pregnant. I built shelter, hunted food, defended myself against rogues. I am the Luna of Ironpine Ridge, and I am done being questioned by wolves who wouldn't last 3 days doing what I've done. The clearing was silent. Then from Ironpine's section, someone started clapping. The applause spread. Not just Ironpine wolves, but others. Wolves from neutral packs. Witnesses who'd come expecting political theater and found something real instead. Ronan's face twisted with rage. This is irrelevant sentimentality. This is the law, Helena said firmly. The law of succession is invoked and verified. All challenges to Ironpine Ridge leadership are hereby delayed until 6 months post-birth. Furthermore, her eyes narrowed at Ronan. These documents you presented, they will be examined thoroughly. If they prove to be forgeries, as Alpha Kael claims, Shadow Fang will face sanctions for bringing false charges before this council. You cannot. I can and will. Helena's voice carried absolute authority. This hearing is concluded. Ironpine Ridge's territory and leadership are secure. Ronan stood frozen, fury and calculation warring across his features. Then his eyes locked on Alara, and she saw something that made ice crawl down her spine. Pure hatred. This isn't over, he said quietly, voice low enough that only those closest heard. You think you've won, little Luna? You've made yourself a target, and targets eventually get hit. Kael moved instantly, placing himself between Ronan and Alara. That sounded like a threat. Did it? Ronan smiled, all teeth. My apologies. I'm simply observing that pregnant wolves are fragile. Accidents happen, especially to those who make powerful enemies. The clearing had gone silent again, everyone feeling the shift from political maneuvering to something darker. Helena's voice cracked like thunder. Alpha Ronin, you will withdraw that statement immediately. What statement? Ronin spread his hands innocently. I simply expressed concern for the Luna's well-being. After all, she's carrying such precious cargo now. Would be terrible if something happened during the long journey back to Iron Pine Ridge. So many dangers in the wilderness. Rogues, predators, unfortunate falls. Marcus's hand was on his weapon. Half of Iron Pine's wolves had shifted into defensive stances. Kale's voice came out wolf rough. If you touch her, I won't touch anyone, Ronin said smoothly. I don't have to. Nature has a way of solving problems, especially for wolves who overreach their station. He turned and walked away, his pack following in precise formation. But his parting glance at Alara carried a promise. This wasn't over, not even close. Helena approached them quietly once Shadowfang had departed. That was dangerously close to a direct challenge. Be careful on your journey home. Ronin doesn't make idle threats. We can handle it, Kyle said. Can you? Helena's ancient eyes found Alara. You invoked the law of succession. That protects you legally, but it also painted a target on your back. Every wolf who wants to destabilize Iron Pine now knows exactly where to strike. Alara felt the baby flutter inside her. Tiny movement, barely noticeable, but real. Let them try, she said quietly. Helena studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. You remind me of myself 60 years ago. Stubborn, fierce, unwilling to back down even when wisdom suggested retreat. She paused. I survived by being smarter than my enemies, not just braver. Remember that, young Luna. Courage without strategy is just another word for dead. She walked away, leaving those words hanging like smoke. The Iron Pine wolves gathered around Kale and Alara, forming a protective circle. We need to move, Marcus said urgently. Get back to Packlands before Shadowfang organizes whatever they're planning. Agreed, Kale said. We travel through the night, no stops except necessity. Everyone stays alert. They moved out within minutes, the pack flowing into travel formation with practiced efficiency. Alara felt the weight of every watching eye as they left the clearing. Shadowfang wolves tracked their departure with predatory interest. Other packs murmured amongst themselves, political calculations already shifting to account for this new development. She'd wanted to be seen. Well, now everyone was watching. The question was, would she survive long enough to prove she deserved their attention? As they entered the forest, darkness closing around them like a fist, Alara pressed her hand to her stomach and made a silent promise. Whatever came next, threats, attacks, political maneuvering, she would face it. Not alone anymore, but together with the pack she'd fought to claim and the mate she'd never expected to truly find. Behind them, in the clearing they'd left, a single shadow detached from the standing stones. Watching, waiting, planning. The shadow moved when they did. Alara felt it first, a prickling awareness between her shoulder blades, the kind of instinct that had kept her alive in the wilderness. Someone was tracking them, staying just far enough back to avoid detection, but close enough to monitor their route. She caught Kael's eye and gestured subtly toward their 6 o'clock position. He nodded almost imperceptibly, then signaled Marcus with a hand sign too quick for her to interpret. The beta dropped back without breaking stride, disappearing into the forest flanking their path. They traveled for another hour in tense silence. The pack moved with military precision. Warriors on the perimeter, vulnerable members protected in the center, everyone alert for the ambush they all knew was coming. It happened at the river crossing. The pack had just begun wading across a shallow ford when wolves erupted from both banks. Not Shadowfang's colors, these were rogues, but organized rogues, too coordinated to be random scavengers. Hired, Alara realized with cold certainty. Ronin had hired rogues to do what he couldn't risk doing himself. Defensive circle, Kyle roared, already shifting mid-stride. Chaos exploded across the ford. Water turned red within seconds. Alara found herself shoved to the center of their formation, surrounded by Iron Pine warriors who fought with desperate efficiency. She counted at least 15 attackers, more than should have been possible to organize on such short notice unless someone had been planning this for days. A rogue broke through the defensive line, heading straight for her. Training took over. Alara shifted, her smaller wolf form twisting under his lunge, jaws finding the vulnerable tendons in his hind leg. He went down howling. She didn't wait to finish him. Another warrior handled that while she spun to face the next threat. Alara left! Kael's voice cut through the battle noise. She dodged right as massive jaws snapped where her throat had been. The rogue, huge, scarred, clearly the leader, recovered quickly and circled her with predatory focus. "The pregnant Luna," he growled, his voice rough with violence. "Worth twice my usual fee. Nothing personal." "Everything's personal," Alara shot back, looking for an opening. He lunged. She was ready this time, pivoted, used his momentum to slam him into a boulder protruding from the riverbank. Heard ribs crack, but he was already recovering and she was tiring fast. Pregnancy had weakened her more than she'd admitted. Then Kael was there, a black avalanche of fury that crashed into the rogue leader with bone-breaking force. The fight was over in seconds. Kael's jaws locked around the rogue's throat, a warning squeeze that didn't kill but promised to. "Who hired you?" Kael demanded, shifting just enough to speak while maintaining his hold. The rogue laughed, blood bubbling from his lips. "Like I tell you, dead wolves don't collect payment." "Then you're useless." Kael's jaws tightened. "Wait!" Alara shifted back to human form, approaching cautiously. "Let him go." Kael's eyes flashed dangerously. "He tried to kill you. And failed. Because we're stronger than whoever hired him expected." She crouched beside the pinned rogue, meeting his eyes. "You failed your contract. Whoever hired you won't pay. Probably will kill you for failing. So you have two choices. Die here and now, or tell us who sent you and maybe walk away alive." The rogue's eyes narrowed. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Alara's voice went cold. "I survived 3 weeks alone in the wilderness while pregnant. I stabbed a rogue through the jaw when he threatened my child. I invoked ancient law in front of the entire regional council and won. Do I seem like someone who bluffs?" Silence. Then, grudgingly, "Shadowfang. Blackwater's beta made contact 2 days ago. Promised triple rates to make you disappear. Didn't have to kill you, just make sure you didn't make it home." "And the others?" Kael asked, gesturing to the rogues littering the riverbank. Most were dead or dying. A few had fled when the battle turned, hired from different territories. Blackwater wanted it to look random. Tragic accident. Pregnant Luna killed by rogues during travel? Who could blame the Alpha for that? Alara felt ice in her veins. This wasn't just an attack, it was political theater. If she died here, Ronan could express sympathy while using her death to prove Ironpine was vulnerable, unstable, unable to protect its own Luna. Marcus emerged from the trees dragging an unconscious wolf. "Found this one trying to run. Shadowfang scout." He was coordinating the attack, feeding positions to the rogues. Kael's expression could have frozen fire. "So Ronan's directly involved." "Can't prove it," the rogue leader wheezed. "Scout's word against an Alpha's, and I'll be dead before sunrise, whether you kill me or not. Blackwater doesn't leave witnesses." "Then disappear," Alara said abruptly. "Take what strength you have left and run so far Shadowfang never finds you. Start over somewhere. No one knows your name." The rogue stared at her. "Why?" "Because I'm not going to become the kind of Luna who kills unnecessarily. You failed your contract. You're no threat to us now. Go." Kael released his grip slowly, clearly reluctant. The rogue staggered to his feet, ribs screaming, and limped toward the tree line. He paused once, looking back. "You're either the smartest Luna I've met or the stupidest," he said. "Can't figure which." "Time will tell," Alara replied. He disappeared into the forest. Kael turned to her, frustration and admiration warring in his expression. "You just let the main witness go." "We still have the scout, and more importantly," Alara gestured to their pack, wolves reforming after the battle. Everyone saw what happened. 15 rogues, coordinated attack, targeting me specifically. That's not random violence. That's assassination. And the council will have to acknowledge it. Understanding dawned across Kael's features. "You're building a case." "I'm building evidence. Ronan threatened me publicly. Now there's been an attempt on my life. Put those together, and suddenly his concerns about my safety look a lot more sinister." Marcus was grinning despite the blood matting his fur. She's weaponizing politics against him, using his own tactics. Exactly. Alara's voice was steady, despite the adrenaline crash making her hands shake. But we need to move fast. Get back to Iron Pine territory before he can organize another attack. And we need to get word to the regional council about what happened here. I'll send runners, Marcus said immediately. Fast wolves, different routes in case of interception. The council will know within 24 hours. Good. Kale shifted back to human form, checking Alara for injuries. Are you hurt? Bruised, tired, but fine. She caught his hands. The baby's fine too. I can feel them, still moving, still strong. Relief flooded his features. Then he pulled her close, forehead resting against hers. You terrify me, he whispered. The risks you take are the same risks you take every day as Alpha, Alara pointed out. I'm not fragile, Kale. The pregnancy doesn't make me helpless. It makes me more dangerous because I'm fighting for 2 lives now instead of 1. I'm starting to understand that. He pressed a kiss to her temple. But I'm allowed to be scared when rogues try to kill you, only if I'm allowed to be scared when they try to kill you. Deal. They pulled apart as the pack finished regrouping. 3 warriors were injured but mobile. No fatalities on their side. A miracle given the ambush's coordination. The bodies of dead rogues would be left for scavengers. The scout, still unconscious, was bound and slung over someone's back to carry home as evidence. We move now, Kale ordered. No rest until we cross into pack territory. Double the perimeter guard. Anyone sees anything suspicious, we assume it's hostile. They ran, through the night, through exhaustion, through pain. Alara's pregnancy-weakened body screamed at her to stop, but she pushed through on sheer will. Kyle stayed close, ready to catch her if she faltered. She never did. Dawn broke as they crossed into Iron Pine territory. The moment they passed the border markers, something in the air changed. The land recognized them, or more accurately, recognized its Alpha and Luna returning together. Alara felt it like a pulse through the ground, a welcome that raised every hair on her body. We're home, Kale said quietly. Alara looked at the forest around them, territory she'd fled 5 weeks ago, invisible and desperate. Now she was returning visible, acknowledged, carrying an air and a truth that would reshape everything. Home, she repeated. The word felt different this time, not like a prison, like a possibility. The pack house came into view an hour later. Wolves lined the approach, the entire pack, it seemed, assembled to witness their return. Alara's stomach clenched. This was the moment. Walking back into the place she'd left, facing the wolves who'd ignored her, dismissed her, treated her like furniture. Kyle must have felt her hesitation. His hand found hers, steady and warm. Together, he reminded her. Together, she agreed. They walked forward side by side. The pack parted to let them through, creating a corridor to the main entrance. Alara kept her head high, meeting eyes instead of avoiding them. Some wolves looked ashamed, others curious. A few smiled, genuine warmth that shocked her. At the entrance stood what remained of the council, 5 wolves in formal robes, looking nervous and hopeful in equal measure. The eldest stepped forward, a grizzled warrior named Gareth, who'd served 3 alphas before Kyle. Luna Elara, he said formally. On behalf of the council and pack, I offer apology for our blindness. We allowed poison to take root in our midst. We failed to see you, protect you, or honor you as you deserved. If you'll permit us, we would like to begin making amends. Elara stared at him. An apology. Public, formal, witnessed by the entire pack. It was more than she'd expected, more than she'd dared hope for. I accept your apology, she said clearly, on the condition that it's followed by action, not just words. Things need to change here, starting now. We're ready, Gareth said. Tell us how. Alara had prepared for this moment during the long run home, had thought through exactly what she needed to say. First, I want my own council seat, not as Luna, as a full member with equal voting rights. Pack decisions affect me as much as anyone else. I deserve a voice in making them. Shocked murmurs rippled through the crowd. Luna's traditionally attended council meetings but didn't vote. She was asking to rewrite pack structure. Gareth glanced at Kyle, clearly looking for permission to object. Kale's voice rang out firm and clear. Granted, from this moment forward, Luna Ilara holds a full council seat with all accompanying authority and responsibility. Gareth swallowed hard. As you command, Alpha. Second, Ilara continued, gaining confidence, I want transparency. No more closed-door meetings about PAC business. Council sessions are open to any PAC member who wants to attend. Decisions affect everyone. Everyone gets to witness them being made. This time, the council members looked genuinely worried. Transparent government was radical, potentially dangerous, but also potentially transformative. Granted, Kael said again before they could object. Ilara turned to face the assembled pack. Third, and this is the most important, I want us to rebuild what pack means. For too long, Iron Pine has operated on fear, control, and political maneuvering. That ends today. We become a pack built on trust, respect, and the belief that every member has value. Low status or high, warrior or healer, everyone matters. Everyone is seen. She paused, letting her words sink in. I know what it feels like to be invisible, to believe you don't matter. I won't let anyone else in this pack feel that way. So here's my promise. I will see you, all of you, and I will fight to make sure this pack never again treats anyone as disposable. Silence fell across the assembly. Then, from the back, a young wolf stepped forward. Ilara recognized her vaguely. Someone from the kitchen staff, maybe. Low status, forgettable, invisible. Luna, the young wolf said, her voice shaking. I've been here 6 years. This is the first time a leader has looked me in the eye and spoken to me like I'm a person. Thank you. She bowed deeply, and then, one by one, others bowed too. Not the formal, required bow given to authority, but something deeper. Acknowledgement, respect, recognition. Ilara felt tears burning behind her eyes. She'd spent so long invisible that being seen, really seen, was almost overwhelming. Kael's hand squeezed hers. When she looked at him, his expression was soft with something that looked a lot like love. Welcome home, Luna, he said quietly, for her ears only. The pack's been waiting for you. I've been waiting for them too, she whispered back. Gareth cleared his throat. There's one more matter that requires immediate attention. He gestured, and 2 wolves dragged the captured Shadowfang scout forward. This wolf was coordinating the rogue attack. He's confessed to his role. The question is, what do we do with him? All eyes turned to Ilara. The decision was technically Kael's as Alpha, but everyone sensed that this was her moment, her choice. She approached the scout slowly. He looked young, barely old enough to be away from his parents, probably. Just following orders, just doing what his Alpha commanded. What's your name? She asked. The scout blinked, surprised. Finn Greystone. Well, Finn Greystone, you have information we need. About Shadowfang's involvement, Ronan's orders, the extent of the conspiracy. She crouched to his eye level. You can provide that information willingly, or we can extract it the hard way. Your choice. Finn's jaw set stubbornly. I won't betray my Alpha. Even though your Alpha sent you on a suicide mission. Ilara kept her voice gentle. You were coordinating from exposed position. No backup, no escape route. If we hadn't captured you, the rogues would have killed you to eliminate witnesses. Ronan wasn't protecting you, Finn. He was using you as a disposable tool. Doubt flickered across the young wolf's features. Here's what I'm offering, Ilara said. Tell us everything. Testify to the regional council about Ronan's involvement. In exchange, I'll petition for asylum. You can stay here, join Iron Pine, start over somewhere you're valued instead of disposable. You'd let me join your pack? After I tried to help kill you? You were following orders from someone you trusted. That's not evil. That's loyalty misplaced. Ilara stood. I'd rather redirect that loyalty than destroy it. So yes, testify, and you have a place here. Finn stared at her for a long moment. Then his shoulders sagged. He said it would be quick. In and out, nobody would know Shadowfang was involved. He said you were weak, that Iron Pine was vulnerable, that this was about regional stability. And now? Now I'm seeing that he lied about everything. Finn's voice hardened. I'll testify. Tell the council everything. But I want your word, your sworn word as Luna, that I'll have protection. Ronan doesn't forgive betrayal. You have it, Ilara said immediately. My word, and my protection. Anyone who wants to hurt you goes through me first. Kael stepped forward, adding his voice to hers. And through me. You're under Iron Pine's protection now, Finn Greystone. Shadowfang wants you. They'll have to go through both of us. Relief and disbelief warred on Finn's features. Why? Why would you protect someone who tried to hurt you? Because that's what a real pact does, Alara said simply. We protect each other, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Marcus approached, a leather-bound journal in his hands. Alpha Luna, there's something you need to see. We found this among the items Varen had hidden. It's extensive. Kale took the journal and flipped it open. His expression darkened with each page. What is it? Alara asked. Documentation of everything Varen did. Every manipulation, every scheme, every instance of deliberately isolating you. Kale's voice was tight with controlled fury. But there's more. He was in communication with Ronan for months before the border skirmish. They were planning something bigger, a coordinated attack that would have decimated both packs, leaving them vulnerable to outside takeover. By who? Alara demanded. Marcus answered, his voice grim. There's a third player, someone Varen refers to only as the Architect, someone who's been manipulating pack politics across the entire region, engineering conflicts to weaken traditional power structures. Well, ice crawled down Alara's spine. This is bigger than just Shadowfang. Much bigger, Kael agreed. And now we have proof. Varen's journal, Finn's testimony, the rogue attack, all of it points to a coordinated conspiracy that goes beyond simple territorial disputes. Then we take it to the council, Alara said firmly. Not just a complaint about Ronan's attack on me. A full investigation into regional manipulation and conspiracy. Force them to look at the pattern, not just individual incidents. Gareth nodded slowly. It's risky. Accusing an alpha of conspiracy is one thing. Suggesting there's a larger force manipulating multiple packs, that's another level entirely. But it's the truth, Alara countered. And we have evidence. What else do we need? Support from other alphas, Kael said. If we go to the council alone, it looks like sour grapes from a pack that was attacked. But if we have allies, other packs willing to examine their own situations for signs of manipulation, then it becomes a regional concern instead of a personal vendetta, Marcus finished. Smart. But who would stand with us? Most packs are too busy protecting their own interests. Alara thought back to the hearing at Silver Peak, the whispers, the watching eyes, the wolves who'd applauded when she'd stood up to Ronan. There were pack members at the hearing who didn't like what they saw, she said slowly. Wolves from neutral packs who witnessed Ronan's threats. If we reach out to them, privately, share the evidence, we could build a coalition, Kael said, understanding dawning. Multiple packs, all bringing evidence of unusual political maneuvering in their territories. Present it together as a pattern instead of isolated incidents. It'll take time, Gareth warned, and discretion. If word gets back to Ronan, or this architect, they'll accelerate whatever they're planning. Then we move carefully but quickly, Alara decided. She turned to the assembled pack, raising her voice. I know you're all exhausted. I know we've been through hell, but there's more work to do. Ronan Blackwater and his allies tried to kill me because I represent something they fear. A pack that chooses unity over manipulation, strength over control. We're going to prove them right to be afraid. The pack erupted in howls of agreement. Kael pulled her aside as the crowd dispersed, heading back to their duties with new purpose. You're natural at this, he said quietly. Leadership, strategy, knowing exactly what to say to inspire them. I learned from watching you, Alara admitted, and from everything I experienced being invisible. I know what wolves need because I needed it too, to be seen, valued, given purpose beyond just survival. We make a good team. We do. Alara's hand found her stomach again, the gesture becoming instinctive. And we're about to make it a trio. Kael's hand covered hers, both of them feeling the tiny life growing between them. They'll grow up in a better pack than we inherited. I'll make sure of it. We'll make sure of it, Alara corrected. Equal partners, remember? Equal partners, Kael agreed. Then, softer. I love you. I should have said it before, should have shown it from the beginning. But I'm saying it now. I love you, Alara. Not because fate chose you as my mate, because you're the strongest, bravest, most remarkable wolf I've ever met. Alara felt the words hit her chest like physical warmth. She'd never expected to hear them, never thought their bond would evolve beyond duty into something real. "I love you too," she whispered. "Against all odds, despite everything, I love you." They kissed there, in front of the pack house, visible to anyone who cared to look. Not a political kiss or a ceremonial one, just two wolves who'd found each other in the wreckage of manipulation and rebuilt something true. When they finally pulled apart, Marcus was waiting with barely concealed impatience. "Hate to interrupt," he said, not looking remotely apologetic, "but we've received word from the regional council. Helena Stormcrest wants to speak with you both, privately. She's coming here tomorrow." Kale's expression sharpened. The head alpha doesn't make personal visits without serious reason. "No," Marcus agreed. "She doesn't." Alara felt anticipation and nervousness warring in her chest. Helena had been cryptic at Silver Peak. Warnings about courage and strategy, about being smarter than enemies. Now she was coming here, to Iron Pine territory, either to offer alliance or to deliver a warning they couldn't ignore. "Then we'll be ready," Alara said firmly. "Whatever she brings, support or threat, we'll face it together." The word had become their anchor. Together. Not Alpha and Luna performing roles, not obligation and duty, but genuine partnership forged in wilderness, tempered in fire, and strong enough to face whatever came next. As the sun set over Iron Pine Ridge, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Alara stood beside Kyle on the packhouse balcony and looked out over the territory that had once felt like a prison. It looked different now. Still challenging, still complicated, still full of wolves who would need time to truly accept the changes she represented. But also full of possibility. Full of wolves who'd bowed not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Full of hope that maybe, just maybe, they could build something better than what came before. Behind them, the packhouse buzzed with activity. Preparations for Helena's visit. Analysis of Varen's journal. Quiet conversations between wolves who were slowly learning to trust again. And in the center of it all, visible and present and finally seen. Luna Alara Vance, who had walked into the wilderness alone and returned with the strength to reshape a pack. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Helena's visit, the conspiracy investigation, Ronan's inevitable retaliation. But tonight, standing beside her mate with their child growing safe inside her, Alara allowed herself a moment of peace. She had survived. She had fought back. And she was just getting started. Helena Stormcrest arrived at dawn. She came alone. No escort, no ceremony, just an ancient wolf walking through the forest like she owned every tree. Which, in a sense, she did. As head of the regional council, her authority stretched across 6 territories and 3 mountain ranges. Most alphas spent their entire lives hoping for her approval. Alara watched from the balcony as Helena approached the packhouse. Even from a distance, the elder alpha radiated power, not the aggressive dominance Ronan wielded like a weapon, but something quieter, deeper, the kind of strength that didn't need to prove itself. "She's here," Alara said quietly. Kael emerged from their chambers now, not separate rooms, and joined her at the railing. "Ready?" "No." Alara's hand moved to her stomach, a gesture that had become reflexive. "But I don't think that matters." They descended together to meet their guest. Helena stood in the main hall, examining the rebuilt council table with the interest of someone who'd seen 6 generations of pack politics. When Alara and Kael entered, she didn't bow or offer formal greeting, just studied them with eyes that had witnessed too much to be surprised by anything. "You've redecorated," Helena observed. "The table's different, circular now instead of hierarchical." "Everyone sits equal," Kael explained. "No head position, no power seat, just wolves making decisions together." "Radical." Helena's expression gave nothing away. "Also smart if you can make it work. Most packs would tear themselves apart trying." "Most packs haven't been torn apart and rebuilt from scratch," Alara said. Helena's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Fair point." She moved to the table and ran her fingers along the smooth wood. "I came because I'm curious, and because I need to know if what I saw at Silver Peak was real or performance." "What did you see?" Kael asked. "A Luna who invoked ancient law without flinching. An alpha who stepped back and let her lead instead of talking over her. A mated pair who looked at each other like partners instead of political convenience. Helena's gaze sharpened. So, which is it? Real partnership or clever theater? Alara met her eyes steadily. Ask me something only real partnership could answer. Helena considered. Then, tell me about the wilderness, not the survival parts everyone already knows, the parts between. When it was just the two of you, no pack watching, no politics. What happened there? The question was a trap, Alara realized. An easy answer would sound rehearsed. Too much detail would sound embellished. She needed to find the truth that couldn't be performed. I learned to trust him, Alara said slowly. Not because he commanded it or because the mate bond demanded it, but because he kept showing up every morning, building shelter, every hunt, pulling his weight, every night, respecting boundaries I set even when the bond pushed for more. She glanced at KL. I learned that the wolf I thought I knew, arrogant, distant, untouchable, was actually just scared, same as me, and fear makes people stupid. KL's hand found hers. I learned that strength isn't dominance. It's knowing when to step back and let someone else lead. Alara survived 3 weeks alone before I found her. She didn't need me to rescue her. She needed me to stop being an obstacle and start being support. Helena watched their joined hands. You touch each other differently than before. At the hearing, it was careful, staged. Now it's, she searched for the word, automatic, like breathing. Because it is, Alara said simply. Silence stretched. Then Helena pulled out a chair and sat. I'm going to tell you something that doesn't leave this room, she said. 40 years ago, I was Luna of Riverbend Pack. My mate was a good alpha, strong, fair, loved by the pack, but he didn't love me. Our mating was arranged just like yours. For 15 years, I was invisible. Then one day, I walked away. Alara's breath caught. You left? Walked into the wilderness and didn't look back. Spent 2 years alone learning who I was without pack politics defining me. Helena's expression turned distant with memory. When I finally returned, I wasn't the same wolf, and I made it clear. Either I was a full partner with equal authority, or I left permanently. What did he choose? Kyle asked. Partnership. It was hard, brutal even. The pack nearly split over it, but we rebuilt something stronger than what existed before. And when my mate died 10 years later, the pack chose me as alpha. Not because of bloodline or politics, because they'd watched me lead for a decade and knew I was capable. She looked at Alara with sudden intensity. I see myself in you. That same fire. That same refusal to stay invisible. So I'm here to offer you what no one offered me. Alliance. Real alliance, not political posturing. What kind of alliance? Kael asked carefully. The kind that reshapes regional politics. Helena pulled a document from her coat. I've been investigating patterns across the territories. Pack conflicts that seem random but follow predictable sequences. Alphas making decisions that weaken their positions without understanding why. It took me months to see the connections, but once I did, she spread the document across the table. It was a map of the entire region, marked with dates, incidents, movements. Someone's been manipulating us, Helena said flatly. All of us. Creating conflicts, destabilizing packs, positioning certain wolves for power while undermining others. Your pack's situation with Varen? Part of a larger pattern. Shadowfang's aggression? Orchestrated. The border disputes that have erupted across 3 territories in the past year? All connected. Alara studied the map, her mind racing. The architect. Varen mentioned someone called the architect in his journal. I know. I've seen the journal. Marcus sent me copies yesterday. Helena's finger traced a line connecting multiple incidents. The architect isn't just one wolf, it's a network. Advisors, council members, even some alphas, all working toward the same goal. Which is? Kael demanded. Destabilization. Break down traditional pack structures, create chaos, then step in with a solution that centralizes power under their control. Helena's voice was grim. They're building toward something. A regional takeover that would put all packs under single authority, their authority. That's insane, Alara said. The packs would never agree to that. They would if they were desperate enough. If conflicts escalated, if territories became unstable, if alphas couldn't protect their own, eventually wolves would accept any solution that promised safety. Helena looked at them both. That's where you come in. Us? Kyle asked. You've already disrupted their pattern. Elara's survival, the law of succession, the public exposure of manipulation, none of that was supposed to happen. You were supposed to fracture, maybe even fall to Shadowfang. Instead, you're stronger, and that's terrifying to them. Elara felt pieces clicking together. That's why Ronan tried to have me killed. Not just political rivalry. I'm a threat to the whole operation. Exactly. A Luna who walked away and came back stronger? Who rebuilt a pack on partnership instead of dominance? Who publicly challenged an alpha and won? Helena smiled grimly. You're a living example that their model doesn't work, and examples spread. So what do? Kyle asked. We build a coalition. Not just Ironpine. Multiple packs working together, sharing information, exposing the network before they can complete whatever they're planning. Helena pulled out more documents. I've already identified 3 other alphas who've noticed the patterns. They're willing to work with us, but they need proof. Hard evidence that connects the incidents into conspiracy. We have Varen's journal, Elara said, and Finn's testimony about Shadowfang's involvement. That's a start, but we need more. We need to identify the core members of this architect network and expose them publicly. Force the regional council to investigate. The council you lead, Kyle pointed out. Can't you just order an investigation? I'm 1 vote among 7. The others need convincing, and some of them might be compromised. Helena's expression was steel. Which is why we need irrefutable proof, the kind that can't be dismissed or politicized. Elara thought about the past month, the wilderness, the survival, the slow rebuilding of trust. They'd been focused on immediate threats, on staying alive day to day. But this was bigger. This was about the future of every pack in the region. Tell us what you need, she said. Helena smiled, the first genuine smile Elara had seen from her. I need you to do exactly what you've been doing. Be visible, be strong. Show other packs that there's a different way forward. And while you're doing that, we gather evidence, quietly, carefully. You want us to be bait, Kale said. I want you to be hope. There's a difference. Helena stood, gathering her documents. The Architect Network operates on fear and control. You represent the opposite, partnership, transparency, wolves choosing strength over manipulation. That's more dangerous to them than any army. And when they come for us? Elara asked quietly. Because they will. When they come, we'll be ready. All of us, together. Helena moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. Your child, when they're born, they'll be the first heir raised under this new model. Not dominance and control, but partnership and choice. That matters more than you realize. Symbols shape futures. She left as quietly as she'd arrived. Elara and Kyle stood in silence for a long moment. We just agreed to fight a conspiracy that spans the entire region, Kyle said finally. While I'm pregnant and you're rebuilding a pack from scratch, Elara added. This is insane. Completely. They looked at each other. Then simultaneously they started laughing, not from humor, but from the sheer absurdity of it all. We're going to need help, Elara said when she could breathe again. A lot of help, Kyle agreed, starting with the pack. They need to know what we're facing. Full transparency, like we promised. Full transparency. They called the pack together that afternoon. All of them. Warriors, healers, craftspeople, even the lowest-ranked wolves who usually weren't included in important discussions. Everyone gathered in the Great Hall, curious and nervous in equal measure. Elara stood at the circular table, Kyle beside her. Marcus and the council members flanked them. United Front. Most of you know parts of what's been happening, Elara began. The attack by rogues, Shadowfang's threats, Varen's betrayal. But there's more. Something bigger that we need you all to understand. She explained everything Helena had revealed. The network, the pattern of manipulation, the coordinated conspiracy to destabilize packs across the region. She didn't soften it or hide the danger. These were wolves. They deserved the truth. When she finished, the silence was heavy. Then a voice from the back. What do you need from us? Elara searched for the speaker. Found the young kitchen wolf who'd thanked her yesterday. The invisible one who'd been invisible no more. I need you to be vigilant, Elara said. Watch for unusual behavior, strangers asking strange questions, anything that feels off. Report it. Not out of paranoia, but out of care for each other. I need you to trust each other, Kael added. The Architect Network works by dividing packs, making wolves suspicious of their own packmates. We counter that by building stronger bonds. Look out for each other. Support each other. And I need you to spread the word, Elara said. When you travel, when you meet wolves from other packs, tell them what happened here. How we rebuilt after manipulation nearly destroyed us. How transparency and partnership made us stronger. Be living proof that there's another way. You want us to be missionaries? Someone asked skeptically. I want you to be honest, Elara corrected. Share your experiences. Let other wolves see that change is possible. That's not missionary work, that's just truth. The pack dispersed slowly, conversations erupting in small clusters. Some wolves looked worried, others energized. All of them engaged, no one invisible, no one dismissed. They're taking it well, Marcus observed. They're terrified, Kael countered. But they're staying. That's what matters. Over the following weeks, Iron Pine transformed. True to Helena's prediction, word spread. Wolves from other territories came to see the circular council table, the transparent meetings, the Luna who spoke with equal authority to her alpha. Some came skeptical and left convinced. Others came hostile and left uncertain. And everywhere Elara went, she was seen. Not just acknowledged, truly seen. Wolves sought her counsel, asked her opinions, treated her like the leader she'd fought to become. It was overwhelming sometimes, the sheer visibility after so long invisible, but it was also exactly what she'd needed. The pregnancy progressed. By the 3rd month, her belly was undeniable. By the 4th, she could feel the baby's strong kicks. Kael talked to their child every night, his hand on her stomach, telling stories about the pack they were building. Your mother is the bravest wolf I've ever met, he'd say. She walked away from everything and survived. Now she's rebuilding everything and thriving. You're going to be so proud of her. Stop, Elara would protest, embarrassed. They can hear you, you know. I know. That's why I'm telling them. Evidence accumulated. Helena's coalition grew, 6 packs now, all sharing information, all noticing the same patterns. Finn provided detailed testimony about Shadow Fang's operations. The journal yielded names, dates, connections. Slowly, the network took shape. And then, in the 5th month of Elara's pregnancy, everything came to a head. A messenger arrived from the regional council. Emergency session called, all alphas required to attend. Topic: formal charges against Ronan Blackwater for conspiracy, attempted murder, and treason against regional stability. This is it, Helena told them over communication crystal. We present everything. All the evidence, all the testimony, all the patterns. If we win, we break the network's back. If we lose, we won't lose, Elara said firmly. The hearing was set for Silver Peak, same location as before, but this time with full ceremony. Every alpha in the region would attend. Every pack would send witnesses. It would be the largest council gathering in decades. And Elara would be 6 months pregnant, visible, vulnerable, and absolutely refusing to hide. You don't have to come, Kael said the night before they were set to leave. You're pregnant, the journey's dangerous. No one would blame you for staying safe. I'm coming, Elara said flatly. This started with me being invisible. It ends with me being seen. Elara, Kael. She took his hands. I know you're scared. I'm scared too, but we've come this far together. I'm not stopping now. He pulled her close, careful of her swollen belly. If anything happens to you, it won't. But if it does, then you keep fighting. For the pack, for our child, for everything we've built. She kissed him softly. But it won't come to that. We're going to win this, together. The journey to Silver Peak was tense but uneventful. Helena's coalition traveled together. 6 packs moving as one, a show of unity that made other territories nervous. Elara rode at the center of Iron Pine's formation, protected but visible, refusing to hide. They arrived to find Silver Peak transformed. The clearing had been expanded to accommodate the massive gathering. Standing stones marked territory boundaries. A raised platform served as the council's seat, 7 chairs for 7 regional alphas, with Helena's in the center. Shadowfang was already there, of course. Ronan stood with his pack, radiating confident menace. But Alara noticed something: fewer wolves than before. His coalition had shrunk. Some packs had quietly distanced themselves as evidence mounted. The hearing began at noon. Helena called the session to order, her voice carrying across the massive crowd. We gather to address charges against Alpha Ronan Blackwater of Shadowfang Pack. The charges: conspiracy to destabilize regional pack structures, attempted murder of Luna Elora Vance, and treason against council authority. How do you plead, Alpha Ronan? Ronan's smile was all teeth. Not guilty on all counts. These charges are fabrication, political revenge from a pack too weak to accept legitimate competition. Then we'll review the evidence, Helena said calmly. She gestured to Marcus, who began presenting their case. Varen's journal. Finn's testimony. The pattern of manipulated conflicts across 6 territories. Communications between Ronan and known conspirators. The coordinated rogue attack. Financial records showing payment to mercenaries. It was damning, comprehensive, irrefutable. Ronan's confident smile began to crack. This proves nothing, he snarled when Marcus finished. Journals can be forged, witnesses coerced, patterns interpreted to fit any narrative. Then explain the money, Helena said coldly. Your pack's financial records show payments to rogues 3 days before the attack on Luna Elara. Payments that coincidentally match the amounts those rogues were promised. Pack funds are used for many purposes, including assassination attempts. Elara's voice cut through his excuse like a blade. She stood, difficult at 6 months pregnant, but she managed and faced him directly. You threatened me at the last hearing, said accidents happen to pregnant wolves. 3 days later, rogues attacked. You're not even trying to hide your involvement anymore. You have no proof I gave those orders. I have Finn's testimony. I have the journal. I have the financial records. Elara's voice was steel. But more than that, I have this. You're terrified. Not of me specifically, of what I represent. A Luna who refused to stay invisible. A pack rebuilt on transparency instead of manipulation. A model that threatens everything your network has been building. My network? Ronan laughed, but it sounded forced. You're delusional. Am I? Elara pulled out the final piece of evidence, a document Helena had been holding back. This is a communication from you to someone identified only as the architect, dated 2 weeks before Varen's betrayal was discovered. You're discussing accelerating the Iron Pine situation and removing obstacles to consolidation. Want to explain what that means? The clearing went silent. Ronan's face turned dark with rage. Where did you get that? From your own beta, Helena said quietly. Who came to me 3 days ago, sick of the bloodshed, ready to testify. He's been cooperating fully. Ronan spun, searching the crowd. Found his beta standing among Helena's coalition, expression resolute. Betrayal and fury warred across Ronan's features. You traitor! You called me a traitor? The beta stepped forward. You manipulated our entire pack. Used us for your conspiracy without telling anyone what we were really fighting for. I swore to serve Shadowfang Pack, not your personal ambitions. The other council alphas were conferring quietly. Helena let them, giving the moment room to breathe. Finally, one of the alphas stood, an older wolf named Garrett Ironwood. I've reviewed the evidence. It's comprehensive and damning. I vote guilty on all charges. Seconded, another alpha said immediately. One by one, the council voted. 5 guilty verdicts out of 7. Only 2 abstained, and even they wouldn't defend Ronan. Helena stood. Alpha Ronan Blackwater, you are found guilty of conspiracy, attempted murder, and treason. The penalties: immediate removal from Alpha position, permanent exile from Shadowfang territory, and prohibition from holding any leadership position in any pack within this region. Your beta will assume temporary leadership until Shadowfang can hold proper succession trials. You can't do this, Ronan roared. I have allies, supporters. This isn't over. It is over, Elara said quietly, but her voice carried. Your network is exposed. Your allies are abandoning you. And the model you tried to destroy? It's spreading. Other packs are watching what happened here. They're seeing that transparency wins, that partnership works, That manipulation can be defeated. She placed her hand on her belly, feeling her child move. My son or daughter will grow up in a region where what happened to me can't happen to anyone else, where wolves are valued, not controlled, where strength means supporting each other, not dominating each other. The crowd erupted in howls of approval. Not just Iron Pine, wolves from multiple packs, all recognizing truth when they heard it. Ronan stood alone, his power stripped, his conspiracy shattered. Guards moved to escort him from the clearing. As he passed Alara, he leaned close. "You think you've won," he whispered viciously. "But the architect is bigger than me, bigger than all of us. This isn't over." "No," Alara agreed softly. "But your part in it is." They took him away. Helena addressed the assembled packs as order gradually returned. "What we witnessed here today was an attempt to destabilize everything we've built. But it failed. It failed because wolves like Luna Alara refused to stay silent, because packs like Iron Pine chose transparency over secrecy, because when we work together, we're stronger than any conspiracy." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Moving forward, I'm proposing reforms. All packs will open their council meetings to pack members. All major decisions will be made transparently, and we'll establish a regional oversight committee to watch for the kind of manipulation we just defeated. It won't be easy. Change never is, but it's necessary." The assembled alphas looked uncertain, but thoughtful. Seeds planted. Not everyone would embrace change immediately, but some would. And that was enough. As the formal session concluded, wolves from multiple packs approached Alara, asking questions, sharing their own stories of feeling invisible, thanking her for speaking truth. She talked with each one, made time, made them feel seen, because that was the whole point. 7 months later, Iron Pine Ridge. The baby arrived during the first snow of winter. Alara's labor lasted 14 hours. Brutal, exhausting, terrifying. Kael stayed with her the entire time, holding her hand, offering water, refusing to leave even when the healers suggested he might be more comfortable waiting outside. "I'm not going anywhere," he'd said firmly. "We're partners. That means I'm here for all of it." At dawn, their son was born, perfect, healthy, screaming with impressive lung capacity. "He's got your stubbornness," Kael said, tears streaming down his face as he held the tiny bundle. "And your volume," Alara countered, exhausted but radiant. "What are we calling him?" They discussed names for months without agreeing. Too traditional felt wrong, too modern felt presumptuous. They needed something that meant something. Kael looked down at their son, this tiny life they'd created against all odds, through wilderness and conspiracy and transformation. "Marcus," he said suddenly, "after the beta who stood by us, who believed when others didn't." Alara felt tears burning. Marcus had been one of the first to truly see her, to treat her like she mattered. "Marcus Vance Draven," she agreed. "But we're calling him Mark. Easier to yell when he's causing trouble." Kael laughed through his tears. "Deal." The pack celebrated for 3 days. Not just Iron Pine. Wolves from allied packs traveled to witness the Heir's presentation ceremony. Helena came personally, bringing gifts and blessings. Even Finn, now fully integrated into Iron Pine, stood among the crowd with pride on his face. At the ceremony, Alara stood before the assembled packs with Mark in her arms. Kael beside her, hand on her shoulder. "This is Marcus Vance Draven," she announced, her voice carrying across the crowd. "Son of Iron Pine, heir to partnership, first of a new generation." The packs howled their approval. Later that night, after the celebrations had died down and Mark was finally sleeping, Alara stood on the balcony overlooking the territory. Kael joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "That a year ago I was standing in this same spot, watching a celebration where I was invisible, planning to leave because staying was killing me." She leaned back against him. "Now I'm standing here holding our son, surrounded by a pack that sees me, working with allies to reshape regional politics. It's surreal." "You did that," Kael said quietly. "Every bit of it. You walked away when staying was impossible. You survived when survival should have been impossible. You came back and demanded change when accepting the status quo would have been easier." "We did it," Alara corrected. "Together." Together, he agreed. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the territory settle into peaceful night. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The Architect Network wasn't fully defeated. Ronan's warning about larger forces at work had proven accurate. There were still packs resistant to change, still wolves who preferred the old ways of dominance and control. But there was also hope. 6 packs had adopted transparent council meetings. 3 more were considering it. Young wolves were traveling between territories, sharing stories of change, building connections that crossed traditional boundaries. Seeds planted, change spreading, and in the center of it all, a tiny baby sleeping peacefully, unaware that his very existence represented revolution. "He's going to grow up so different from how we did," Alara murmured. "Good," Kael said. "He deserves better than what we inherited." "He'll have better. We'll make sure of it." Inside the pack house, Marcus and the council were already planning next steps, identifying remaining conspiracy elements, building stronger alliances, preparing for whatever came next. But here, on this balcony, holding her mate and thinking about their sleeping son, Alara allowed herself to just be. Not Luna, not revolutionary, not symbol, just Alara. A wolf who'd been invisible and refused to accept it, who'd walked into wilderness and emerged stronger, who'd faced down conspiracies and won because she'd learned the most important lesson of all. Strength isn't dominance. It's knowing when to walk away and when to come back on your own terms. It's choosing partnership over control. It's being willing to be seen, really seen, even when visibility makes you vulnerable. It's fighting not just for yourself, but for everyone who comes after, so they never have to feel invisible. "I love you," she said quietly. "I love you too," Kael replied. "Thank you. For what?" "For not giving up on us, even when I gave you every reason to." Alara turned in his arms, meeting his eyes. "Thank you for learning to see me, really see me." They kissed there, under the stars, while their son slept safe and their pack rested peaceful and their territory stood strong. Tomorrow would bring challenges. But tonight was victory. Hard won, blood bought, absolutely earned, and it was only the beginning. 10 years later, Mark Vance Draven stood at the circular council table, watching his parents work. His mother, Luna Alara, legendary for walking into wilderness pregnant and returning to reshape pack politics, was deep in discussion with representatives from 3 allied packs. His father, Alpha Kael, known for being the first alpha to publicly share power equally with his Luna, was reviewing territory maps with Uncle Marcus. Mark was 10 now, old enough to understand what made his parents special, old enough to know their story, the one told in every pack across the region. The invisible Luna, who refused to stay invisible. The Alpha, who learned partnership was stronger than dominance. "Mark, come here," his mother called. He joined her at the table. She was teaching him council procedures, preparing him for the leadership role he'd one day inherit. "What do you see?" she asked, gesturing to the discussion. 3 packs trying to resolve a border dispute, Mark said. "They're using the transparency protocols. No hidden agendas, no manipulation, just honest negotiation." "And it's working," his mother confirmed, "because they learned that honesty prevents most conflicts before they start. Your father and I learned that the hard way. You're lucky. You're growing up in a world where this is normal." "Because you made it normal," Mark said. His mother's expression softened. "We started it, but hundreds of wolves made it real. Change isn't one person or one pack. It's everyone choosing something better." His father joined them, ruffling Mark's hair affectionately. "Ready for next week?" Next week, Mark would present his first proposal to the council. At 10, he was young for it, but his parents believed in learning by doing. His proposal, establishing a regional youth program where young wolves from different packs could train together, building connections that crossed traditional boundaries. "Ready," Mark confirmed. "Nervous?" his father asked. "Terrified." "Good." His parents exchanged a smile that Mark had seen 1,000 times, a look of partnership, love, shared history. Fear keeps you sharp. Through the windows, Mark could see the territory his parents had rebuilt, strong, united, built on principles of transparency and partnership that had once seemed impossible. He'd heard the stories of how hard they'd fought for this. The wilderness months, the conspiracy, the assassination attempts. How his mother had stood before the regional council, 6 months pregnant with him, and demanded change. Sometimes he wondered what that must have been like. To fight so hard for something that now seemed so simple. "Mark," his mother said gently, sensing his thoughts. "Don't take this for granted. We built it, but your generation has to maintain it every day, every choice. Promise me you'll remember. Real strength is choosing partnership over power." "I promise," Mark said solemnly. She pulled him close, and his father joined the embrace. 3 wolves, a family built on choice and fight and love that had survived everything. Outside, the pack went about their business. Visible, valued, seen. Inside, at the circular council table, the next generation prepared to carry forward the legacy 2 wolves had forged in wilderness and tempered in fire. A legacy that proved some bonds are worth breaking before they can be remade. A legacy that showed strength isn't dominance. It's knowing when to walk away and when to return on your own terms. A legacy that whispered to anyone feeling invisible, "You are seen, you matter, you can change everything. One wolf at a time, one choice at a time."